to the invitation of the angel which brought heaven to earth and changed human history. You opened yourself to God's word, and the word was made flesh and dwelt among us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. So we'll move on to item 2.1, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Trustee Agnew.
Arbor.
Seconded by Trustee Duarte.
I can second it.
We got a seconder. Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Is there anybody opposed? Okay, seeing none opposed, the policy agenda passes. We're moving on to item 2.2, approval of minutes from the April 14th, 2020 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? Trustee Agnew. Get a seconder?
Oh gosh.
Trustee Carabella?
I'll second. Oh,
Sorry.
Are you okay?
The sound's going in and out, and I'm not sure if this is approval of the minutes.
It is approval of the minutes. We've got somebody made a motion. I thought you were making a second. Are you seconding it?
Sure, I can, but I also have something to say.
Okay, Trustee Carabella, before we go to a vote.
Oh, thank you. So just on 4.1, I thought we did a separate vote for the addition of the word popes into the name selection policy, and that it passed to keep the word popes there. And I thought it was an actual vote, so I'm just checking that it's not reflected in the minutes.
So the way it was presented as a whole, I don't believe it was a separate motion. I believe it was recommended to bring forward a popes. I believe it was actually Trustee Murphy who brought popes forward. And then we looked at it as a whole.
Okay, I seem to remember that we went one by one, like vote for it. And then in section 9, for the absentees trustees, I think it's just a small typo that there should be a no, that there were no absent trustees.
Okay, hold on. Section 9.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just missing no. Yep, okay. Duly noted.
Thank you. And so what is the consensus? Was it a vote on the popes, or we just went around the table as a consensus without a vote?
I believe we went around the table as a consensus, and then we voted on the final changes as a group.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so I'll go to a recorded vote then. Trustee DeRosa?
in favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
In favor?
Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearns or Nota?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Tomasi?
Favor.
Trustee Caratow?
In favor.
Trustee Swan?
In favor.
Trustee Bombra, sorry. Is she on? I think she's on. Okay, I don't believe she's on. I thought I'd seen her come on. Moving on to item 3, declaration of conflicts of interest. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Moving on to item number 4, action items. Policy I-15, school name selection. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Should we get it moved and seconded on the, or we're deciding which one we're going with? There's the
you have a discussion item here in regards to your change. We already, this policy is back on the table for review based on your changes. So Do you wanna give us a little bit of background on your changes? I
Sure.
understand you have a discussion item, not discussion, but your commentaries here.
That's right. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The commentaries are there. If you can scroll up a little bit to get to it. Okay, well, it's missing. So anyways, I thank the trustees who voted in support of the new phrasing, or that it would go back to the policy meeting. I value everyone's time, so I don't want to have a big debate. I think we did talk about it at the board meeting already. I was just proposing a more succinct wording to reflect the, to express the Catholic symbols of faith, that it can be better expressed with, and take away the persons of the Holy Family and the Blessed Trinity can all be encompassed in persons and mysteries celebrated as feasts in the Catholic calendar, Catholic liturgical calendar. So things like the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Corpus Christi, Holy Family, all that is encompassed under persons and mysteries celebrated as feasts in the church's liturgical calendar. And then the blesseds and the saints and the popes, that's what I'm proposing. The way it's written in the second policy, I guess we're given both policies to look at and we're to choose one. So I would encourage to choose the second one that has the other phrasing that I proposed. Thank you.
So we're given both policies. Thank you, Trustee Carabella, so that we can see what was agreed to at the last policy meeting. And then you've proposed further changes. So that's, so the trustees have something to compare it to, so they know what the actual changes are that you've proposed. That's why both policies were provided.
That's right.
So by your changes are, what are we missing that you've proposed the changes? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to follow.
Okay. The second policy would have, there's a diocesan opinion that schools, so I've taken, here it goes rolling, right there. So it shows that I've taken out divine persons of the Trinity, members of the Holy Family, verified, recognized, verifiable saints, or local Ontario Canadian exemplary Catholics now deceased. And all that, like members of the Holy Family or a school that's in Holy Family School, right? That's a mystery. It's a feast day that's celebrated in the church's liturgical calendar. So a Sacred Heart of Jesus, Corpus Christi, Our Lady of Fatima, all that is reflected in the persons and mysteries celebrated as feasts in the church liturgical calendar. And then including their recognized blessed and saints, and then leaving or popes, which was decided on at the last policy meeting as well. So it's kind of like a succinct, clarifying way to the naming of the schools.
Okay, thank you. So can I then, can we get a motion that the policy committee recommends that policy I-15 school name selection be forwarded along with amendments to the May 19, 2020 regular board meeting for approval as presented by Trustee Carabella? These are the new changes that she's proposed, and then we'll open it up for comment.
I move.
So I'll move it.
So moved by Trustee Carabella, seconded by Trustee DeRosa. Okay, and I'll open it up for discussion, and I've got Trustee Duart.
Through Madam Chair, at the same time, I would like to make a minor suggestion, and I was wondering if you could club them together. Under new school process, I just want to change one word in that paragraph from representative to trustees. The board will establish, if you can move the policy up, please, to new school process. I just want to clarify one word and change one word in this statement to clarify. The board will establish a committee comprised of trustees and student trustees, including but not necessarily exclusive to local area trustees. I want to change the word representative to trustees. So just to clarify the process we have right now, it looks like it's a local area representative. I want it to be trustees because we are talking about trustees in that particular thing. So, Madam Chair, if you could open this up for discussion.
So you just want, okay, so
Just to
can
make it
we,
clear.
Trustee Dort, can we park yours for a minute and get back to the changes that are here?
Okay.
We'll definitely park it. I understand you're looking for clarification where it says representative. You want it to be clear that that representative is reflective of trustee.
Correct.
I think it's kind of unspoken, but I understand you want to put clarity to that. And do you have any comments on the new changes that are proposed?
No.
Okay. So we'll put yours on park for a second, and I'm going to go to Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you. But actually, Mike, I wanted to talk to Trustee Dwart's suggestion, so I'll come back to mine. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Agnew. No, you don't need to turn that on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're on here.
Through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a comment that I feel that the last policy that we passed with the changes were fine. We had some fulsome discussion on it. I think that we landed on a great revised policy, and I think it was fully encompassing everything that we needed it to be, while removing any of the items that we were worried about having in there. So, you know, I don't know why we needed to bring it back. I felt that it was completely fine the way it was. So I appreciate the work that Trustee Carabella has done on this, but I'm actually in favor of the original one that we passed at the previous policy meeting.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Any other comments? If not, let's go to Trustee DeRosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think for my own, these changes just serves to clarify things more than anything else. It's much clearer than the original version, so that's why I supported it. Thank you.
Trustee O'Hearn's your Nota.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I just, Trustee Carabella, I will oppose this as I have the other two, and I'm not opposing what's in this policy. I'm opposing what's not in it, which is leaving the lay people in case in the future there may be someone that a local school would like to name their school after. So I will be opposing, but I wanted to be clear on the reasons why. Thank you for the time.
Trustee O'Hearn's your Nota. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you to Madam Chair. And a question for Trustee Carabella. I just want to get clarification. In your changes, is the word popes taken out? Because it's kind of in these square brackets here.
Trustee Carabella.
Madam Chair, may I answer? Yeah, I'm assuming, I don't know why it's actually highlighted. That's why I tried at the moment of the minutes that popes was to be left in, and I am leaving it in this version as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Duart.
Sorry, Madam Chair, sorry, this computer was just slow. Yeah, I just want to make one comment. I'd like to see the word popes retained in there. And the last time I did support this motion, and I did a simple test. I took every name of the school in our board and tried to fit that into the policy right now, and it works. So every name is safely cleared by the way the wording is right now, and I did support it last time. I will continue to support that. I'd like to see the word popes in there, please.
Thank you. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I've had time to think about this, and I guess in this time, Pope Francis really has been a blessing to us, and I can see that I know some people have been brought back to the faith just because of his new way of looking at church. So I would definitely like to see the word popes kept in. Thank you.
My understanding is that Pope is left in. It's not. It wasn't proposed for it to take out. It's just showing that was the previous. So it is there.
I just wanted to say the comment. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Murphy, is that just a yes in staying in popes, or did you want the floor?
No, I was cheering Trustee O'Brien on because As you know, I have a secret mission to have one of our new schools in Milton named after Pope Francis.
I'm with you, Trustee Murphy.
It's not so secret, I guess, if I say it in public, is it?
Okay, so we've got another proposed change to that has been brought forward. So I think what we'll do is let's deal with this portion of it first, and then we can go to the other proposed change that has come forward, which is Trustee Dewart's clarification on representative. So I'll go around and take a recorded vote. Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
Opposed.
Trustee Carabella.
This is
This is
for
your
which
this is
the one
for
that
your-
I'm suggesting, persons
Yes.
and mysteries. Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Duarte.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
Opposed.
Trustee Ahern Nota.
Opposed?
Trustee Murphy.
In favor?
Trustee Tomasi.
Favor.
And I'm opposed. So that's 5 in favor, 4 opposed. So the changes will come through. Next, we'll go to trustee, sorry.
We need to deal with the diocesan opinion part of it.
Yeah, we do. Do you want to deal with that, or do we want Trustee Paolo to talk about that? Because even though this is what we are doing here, we need to send it back to the diocese for their approval. And because if you read the preamble to it, there's a diocese opinion that schools should be named after. And this is no longer reflective of what that diocese opinion is, because that has now changed. So we have to send it for approval to ensure that we can still use that piece to say there is a diocese opinion that schools should be named after persons and mysteries celebrated as feasts in church liturgical calendar, recognized blesseds and saints and or popes. And in this package, as you'll recognize, the correspondence from the diocese was included in all of this. Oh my God, I'm sorry. I totally missed the student trustees. I am going to go back. Trustee Caratow.
I abstain.
Thank you. Trustee Swan.
And I also abstain as well.
Thank you. And Trustee Bombra has not come back on, has she? Okay. I apologize, gentlemen. I did not mean to leave you out. It's a little different when you're not sitting in orders. Let me see here. Trustee Agnew, you have your hand up.
That's okay. I was just going to make the same comment about the diocese opinion.
Okay. Trustee DeRosa.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chair. The vote is for the recommended changes by Trustee Carabella, right?
Absolutely. However, what it says in that piece under principles, the sentence, like in advance of it, it says there is a diocese opinion that the school should be named after, and then the changes that are made have not been approved by the diocese. So we have to now send it for approval.
Okay,
Because otherwise we cannot use that piece.
that's right. So that
And I'm
doesn't,
not sure what the policy would look like should they come back and say, we don't approve of the recommended changes. The previous changes that we had done, as stated at the last board meeting, were approved. We sent them out to the Vicar of Education, and who then in turn sent it out to the bishop. So Superintendent Paolo says she will consult in advance of the board meeting. Trustee Tomasi.
Sorry for the delay through you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering whether or not the wording that is to seek input from the diocese as opposed to approval from the diocese would be a softer way of deploying that change or deploying that request.
but it's not, it's the way it's worded. It says that there is an opinion that already exists. Because the previous policy, that's what the wording was it used to say there is a diocese opinion that schools should be named after divine persons of the Trinity, members of the Holy Family, recognized verifiable saints, or local Ontario Canadian exemplary Catholics now deceased. We've changed it. We changed it at the last policy meeting. We made recommended changes. We got approval from the diocese that those changes were okay, and they still gave their opinion that was okay. We are now changing it again. So before we can say that this goes up to the board and use that line, that sentence, we have to go back to the diocese. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just want clarification. Trustee Carabella's changes didn't pass, right?
No, they passed.
Oh, they passed. Okay, just want clarification. Thank you.
Yep. 5-4 with 2 abstentions and 2 abstentions. So, all right. So that being said, so just so we're aware before it comes to the next board meeting that we have to go through that last step. And if the diocese does not approve of the recommendations that have been brought forward, we'll need to deal then with that sentence that says that there is a diocese opinion that should be named after. Not sure how that would work because the diocese is supposed to have input. I'm not sure how that.
The original change
was a group read.
Was agreed to, so I think we'd have to bring it back, but that could be the replacement.
Right. Okay. So just as long as we're cognizant of that, okay? Trustee Duart. We'll go back
through you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming back to this. So, new school process. The first statement, to me, it's clear, but I'd like to clarify it even more and make it crystal clear, just so that there's no ambiguity in that. The board will establish a committee comprised of trustees and student trustees, including but not exclusive to local area representative. I'm proposing that we change that word to trustee and make it very clear that the first part and the second part of the statement are one and the same. So I'd like to open it up to trustees for questions and we can discuss.
Trustee DeRosa?
Okay, my hand up was a consequence of I just had a point of clarification with the approval of the policy by the diocese. But I also have a comment on this one. So if you'll allow me, Madam Chair, I just want to know, are we obligated to take, is there an obligation to follow the recommendation of the diocese, although we know that that would be the wise thing to do, I guess. But are we obligated?
I don't know that we're obligated. I'm gonna defer that question to the director and to Superintendent Paolo, because I think if I was to take a stab, I would say yes, there is an obligation there. They are part of the relationship between home, school, and church. And we are talking about naming one of the schools in the Diocese of Hamilton. But not only that, this policy, the statement says there is a diocese opinion. We cannot say that we have received an opinion from the diocese on something that we did not get an opinion on. And right now, the way that the motion that has just come to the table for the changes to this policy has not been approved by the diocese. So if they in turn come back and say we don't approve of these changes, we cannot say that the diocese opinion is that the school should be named after this. But
so there's an implication that the diocese, that we're gonna apply the diocese recommendation. That's fine. I just wanted to at least have everybody hear the question. With respect to the next point, the new school process, if I may, Madam Chair. In this committee, what type of voice or representation does the community of the actual school have? And I'm including the staff here. Do they have a voice on this? And the weight of the voice that they have on the naming of the school to which they go to Well, they show up to work every day on it. And my view is that they should have somewhere, they should be represented and have a voice.
I think that there's already a committee that has been struck for renaming. I don't know how it, I think we're using the same process as we would in the naming. That was the directive that that Director Daly, I think, has utilized this policy, but do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. In a typical new school naming, in the past, the staff role would really be probably in the voting. They might have some input in terms of the 4 or 5 names that they kind of go to a community vote. But typically, when in a new school situation, there's nobody on the staff. There might be a principal and a secretary, maybe. I think in this particular case, because we were applying the new school name process to a renaming process, there was a different interpretation of maybe who could be on that initial committee. So I think Trustee Duarte makes a good point to say that really what the part that he's referring to says trustees can be on the committee, including trustees from outside of that jurisdiction. So it's not just limited to, for example, in Milton, to the 2 Milton trustees. In fact, it could be to other trustees. I think that's what you're getting at, Trustee Duarte.
Yes, Director Daly. It's I think it's clear, and I'm not changing anything.
Right.
It's basically the sentence. I'm just want to bring some more clarity to that particular sentence by saying trustees from local trustees, student trustees, and trustees from other areas. It already implies that, but I just want to bring more clarity to this statement, and that's all I'm trying to do.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Duarte. Trustee O'Brien?
Madam Chair, is it possible to have a follow-up?
Sure.
Thank you very much. And it's really a statement. I think when we take into consideration I'll use a word, trauma, if you will, of this experience that both the staff and the school, the student body had to go through this unfortunate situation. I think it's important that we make sure that whatever changes we make this provides for their participation, and I would say a significant participation from the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Duarte, so can you tell us again the exact phrase you want to change in the new school process?
So, Madam Chair, to Trustee O'Brien, it's just a change of one word, the word representative. If Janine can bring the cursor 2 lines above the word representative, change the word representative to the word trustees.
Thank you.
It's just to bring more clarity to that statement.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Is there any other questions on this? So, so we'll go to a vote on changing the word, I guess. Trustee DeRosa?
Again, I'm not comfortable that this would be inclusive of staff participation. Therefore, I'm opposed.
Okay, we're not changing anything except for the word representation to clarify that it is trustee, that it's what it's referencing. So it's just changing the word. It has the same meaning, and it's not going to change. It's not going to change the policy or the attendance on the policy. So, but if you're opposed, you're opposed. Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Duarte.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Nota.
In favor?
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee Tomasi.
Favor.
Trustee Caratao.
In favor.
Trustee Swan.
In favor.
So the change will pass. It'll be presented along with the other changes to the March 19th, 2020 board meeting. Moving on to item I-23, Catholic School Councils and Catholic Parent Involvement Committee. We had a discussion last policy meeting in regards to this, and it was asked to go back and get some feedback from Cpec. So Superintendent Crowell, if you'd like to speak to it, and then we'll get a motion on the table.
Sure. Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to present the information that we gathered from Cpec. So at the request of the policy committee, we did share the policy and procedure with Cpec. It was emailed first, sent for input. We got 9 members of Cpec providing feedback, including 6 elected parent members. Feedback was generally positive. We did have our diocesan representative ask questions as to why the changes were proposed, as he felt no changes were needed, and we sent a rationale, which is part of the action report, saying that some schools have had significant interest in parents wanting to be involved in Catholic School Council, and reported they've had more non-Catholic parents wishing to be part of the council than there are positions available, and the same for Cpec. Whereas some schools have also struggled to find enough parents to make a healthy council, feel they are sometimes limited by not being able to allow more non-Catholic parents. There were additional minor suggestions. Another one that came through was that we increase the number of members of Cpec representing North Halton from 2 members to 4. This was also discussed by a Cpec subcommittee during the course of our year regarding our election process. There was also positive one member agreeing with the increase of trustees on Cpec from 2 to 4, and some language on the OAPSI director. It was then tabled at the most recent Cpec meeting, which last Monday. I know a number of trustees were in attendance. There was further discussion on this issue without reaching consensus for increasing the number of non-Catholic members. One suggestion that received support was changing the language that Catholic school councils and Cpec should have a majority of members that are Catholic. Finally, we made a proposed change to the procedure to clean up some of the language around bylaw, just to clarify that each member would receive a copy of the Catholic School Council bylaws at the first school council meeting of each year. At this point, due to the amount of discussion around the procedure, our thinking is that we are going to pull back the procedure at this point. We'd like to get some more input from Catholic school councils across the board, and that will be something that we could revisit in the fall. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Crowell. Can I get a motion that the policy committee recommends that policy I-23, Catholic School Councils and Catholic Parent Involvement Committee, be forwarded along with amendments to the May 19th, 2020 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Trustee Nota. Is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry, I missed a little bit of you there. Okay, moved by Trustee Nota, seconded by
Mervyn.
Trustee Duarte. I'll open it up for discussion. Trustee Tomasi. Trustee Tomasi, I'm going to give you 10 seconds and then I'm going to move on to the next person.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. My microphone was off. So I'm wondering what the purpose is of this particular policy, because the Education Act clearly stipulates that the board and the other arm under the director does not have any jurisdiction over parent council or school councils. They're their own entity and they make their own decisions, which is why they're able to strike their own bylaws. So perhaps Director Daly and or Superintendent Jeff Crow provide me with where in the Act we have jurisdiction over school councils.
just give us a second. You know what, Trustee and Tomasi, can we move on maybe to the next person while we get a second to get that information up? Yeah. And Janine, there you go. Thanks. Okay. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I noticed that this policy didn't have a faith statement under principles, and I wanted to propose an amendment to include a faith statement. I did look at some other policies. I looked at our mission statement, and then actually later on in this policy meeting, the academic promotion also has a faith statement under principles, and I would like to propose an amendment that we put the following statement under the principles, and that is in sort of, you know, at this point with parish, school, and home triad, in keeping with that, and that we're a Catholic school board and the parents' involvement is paramount. So the faith statement could be the amendment: Halton Catholic District School Board recognizes that our school community exists to foster and exemplify our Catholic faith and values. So that is one amendment I'm proposing. I'd have more, but perhaps we can discuss one at a time.
That would be great. Also, can we also maybe look at the changes that we have in here as well, unless we want to go through the document from start? Is that in order, Trustee Carabella? Like, as principals, like, are you going in order right now? Is that how you're looking at this?
Yeah, it's under the principles.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that, but we have other trustees as well who might have some suggestions and feedback. So we'll come back to you. So that's one of the changes. Proposed changes. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through Madam Chair, to Superintendent Crowell. I was at the meeting, and I wanted to thank you for a good report on the meeting. It seems to me, though, that the spiritual director, Father Francis Salazar, did give a comment. Do you have any summary of what that comment might be?
I'm trying to remember the exact words that he used. Again, he was just, if I can, and you were there as well, so you can certainly, if it's misrepresented, certainly let me know. His concern was generally that he felt that things were good that the way they were, and I did try to capture that in sort of his response, his written response, because he did refer to that in his statement, that his main concern was that he didn't feel that there were any issues with the current compositions of council, so why would we look to make changes?
Okay. So again, I think I heard the same thing, that changing the procedure from 2 to 4 may have been something he may not have agreed with. That seems to be what I kind of heard. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think I did try to represent that in the report and in what I've shared, but it is in the procedure, and just to note the procedure, we are going to pull back just to get some more consultation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Duart.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just want to react to Superintendent Crowell and his update here. So I was at the Cpec meeting, and there was a good discussion. There were 6 people who spoke. 3 spoke very strongly that there should not be a change. 2 said they prefer to see a change, and 1 was 50+1. There was no vote taken, and so there was no conclusion which way it is. Besides, we had 6 members speaking for 45 schools in our system. How can this be a representation of our board and the differences that we have in different regions? It cannot. Besides, I'd like to point out one more thing, and I did point it out at Cpec. Smaller schools have 8 members max. And if we are proposing in the procedure to change the school, the composition of the committee to be 4 members of non-Catholic, we are changing it right away. It's a big change. We are going from 2 members to 50%. What is the thinking behind this? I have not seen a good reason prompting this change. I've been on school council myself for 10 years. I'm talking practically that I've never seen an issue at all. I've not seen any issue to back up this change from 2 to 4. Besides, we have not put thought as to the composition of the school council. 50% of 8 members is 4 members, and which is being proposed. absolutely doesn't make sense to me. And besides, again, the 6 people do not represent the school system when it comes to feedback, and I do not see a good reason for change. And those are my comments.
Thank you, Trustee Dewart, but I think Superintendent Crowell already said that they're going to hold off on any changes procedurally and get feedback from the parent councils in the fall. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did hear you say that when you were talking about this discussion. Did I mishear you?
No, that's exactly right. And just to be clear that Cpec was asked for feedback. They weren't asked to take a vote. And so we did try 2 different ways to get feedback. Recognize that not everyone may have felt comfortable speaking at the meeting. So that's why we allowed 2 different formats for feedback. I did note that we didn't come to consensus, and that's why we're pulling back that part of the procedure to get more feedback from our school councils.
So, Madam Chair, as follow-up. Can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
So then why are we talking about the policy? Are we bringing the policy back in the fall too?
Our intention is that the policy can go forward because there are no major changes to the policy. There are only very minor changes, except for what's being proposed tonight. And our intention would be that we would revisit the procedure in the fall.
It's in our cycle, Trustee Dewart. This is part of our cycle, the form that we get. So this is up for review right now. So
Madam Chair, another follow-up, if you don't mind.
Your last one, Trustee Dewart, okay. And then we're moving on to the next person.
I'm just concerned because the procedure is not written by us trustees, and we have no control over that, or no say over that at all. So if there's some things that under policy that are not in agreement with trustees, and trustees want to put it into the policy, how do we have the opportunity? Do we have to wait for the next cycle, or what? They should go hand in hand. The policy and procedure should go hand in hand.
I mean, through you, Madam Chair, I certainly appreciate Superintendent Paolo. She wants to jump in, but we certainly bring the procedures to you to present them. Our intention is, though, as you said earlier, to get feedback from those that are going to be directly affected by this, which is the school councils. So I think we are being representative of the school system, the people that are directly affected by this policy. So that's the intention for pulling back and speaking to the school councils directly.
Thank you, Superintendent Crowell. Trustee Dewart, we're going to move on to Trustee O'Hearns or Nota.
Hi, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. Of course, I noticed increased representation was a suggestion from North Halton. So when you do bring it back to the fall, please don't forget that piece. North Halton likes to have a voice as much as anyone else. And as far as the majority on the council, I'm sure that'll be discussed with the Fulsome conversation with everyone involved in the fall as far as being inclusive for our parent councils as well as Cpec. That's it.
Thank you, Trustee O'Hearns or Nota. Trustee Tomasi.
Through you, Madam Chair. So if Cpec is an advisory committee and advises the board, and the board has no jurisdiction over what school councils do, because Section 15 of the Education Act, which stipulates that school councils have their own responsibility to create their own bylaws. I'm not sure where our policy fits in and how we can enforce it in any way. So I really see this particular policy as being redundant. Thank you.
I've done it for 20 years.
Thank you, Trustee Tomasi. However, if I'm not mistaken, I still think that the bylaws have to be in line with the policy of the board. It doesn't dictate what the school councils have to do. It just talks about what the requirements are, if I'm not mistaken.
Follow up. So Section 15 is very specific. Every school council shall make the following bylaws. There's 1, 2, 3. And it goes on, and it stipulates that make their own bylaws. It gives no reference to the board having any role in that particular process.
How do you deal with staff then? Right? Staff's role on it.
Director Daly?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Tomasi is correct in that school councils do establish their bylaws. But school council bylaws also have to be in line with board policies. So I understand the section he's referring to. Every school council shall make the following bylaws. There is a reference in point 3 to, in a very specific instance, to establishing bylaws in accordance with applicable policies established by the board. So while school councils do have a fair amount of autonomy, we still need a board policy that recognizes that school councils exist, that school councils should fulfill the mandate that they're given in the Ed Act. And I would guess, although I'm not sure, that when we adopted the policy in 1996, it probably was when school councils were first established or close to it.
So I'm sorry, I need to make a clarification to point number 3 that Director Daly is referring to. That particular section only refers to conflict resolution, and it pertains to the internal portion of the school, which is mandated by the board policies, not school council.
Sorry, can I just ask a point of clarification, Trustee Tomasi? I'm just having a hard time following you, because how do you then deal with the fact that board staff sit on parent council? There's actually a requirement to have the principal sits on the council, and there's a non-teaching representative, and then there's a teaching representative. So if they could make their own bylaws, then what governs board staff in those councils? So
first of all, school councils are an entity unto themselves. The Education Act provides for them to put together bylaws. The bylaws follow certain procedures. Bylaws are generally universal. There isn't too much you can put in there that wouldn't follow the education guidelines. The guidelines that are instituted in the bylaws are the same guidelines that are provided to them by the Education Act.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Tomasi. I'm going to move on to Trustee DeRosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very simple question. Why don't we wait till we have all the information in the fall to have this discussion? What's the rush? Notwithstanding the legalities of that I've listened to for the last 10 minutes here. Can this wait until we get more input?
Trustee DeRosa, the policy is not the one that has the issues that are contentious. It's the actual procedure that does. So we can actually go through the cycle of dealing with the policy right now and circle back with the procedure once we get feedback. And I'm sure if we talk to staff, they will ensure that the procedure comes back to policy for us to see with the changes and offer any feedback should we have any.
And Madam Chair, I do understand that. My question is still valid. Am I still there? Yeah. In essence, could we not do both the policy and the procedure at the same time when we've got more representative input from the field?
Well, we can
That's
definitely.
My question.
Yep. No, we can look at that. Trustee Carabella.
Oh, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I had the other amendment I wanted to make was in response to the procedure about the membership number of non-Catholics. And I understand that if it goes back for input, but at the same time, if we have it in our policy already, we can also look at that input. I wanted to make another amendment under requirements that would be all parents are encouraged to run for school council and Cpec and follow their respective bylaws governing elections or nominations, with the provision that no more than a maximum of 2 members be non-Catholic.
So Trustee Carabella, can we maybe park that for now because we're not going to be dealing with the procedure?
I think so.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me put my politically correct hat on. I think we're making a mountain of a molehill with this. The reality is these are parents. They have a vested interest in the committee. Their children go to the school. We're not taking strangers who we have to be worried about nefarious actions. The reality is this council is put together to help support the school and to raise funds. The reality is the principal really controls and directs this council. That the principal who is accountable to the superintendent and the director and ultimately to the board. So really, I don't understand, honestly, why we're having these debates. When we're sitting at the table with these people, nobody has to identify themselves as Catholic or anything else. They're all committed to the school and to making the school a better place and a better community, and under the watchful eye and guidance and direction of the principal. The principal has final say on the agenda, has control over the whole council. So I think the policies are in place for a reason, and yes, there's control elements and it gives guidance, and the procedure from that will develop as it may, and I think we should vote on this and get it moving.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. However, I think some of these school council chairs are probably cringing hearing you say that it's the principals that control the parent council, the school council meetings.
I just speak the truth. It's a curse, Madam Chair.
Superintendent Crowell. Superintendent Crowell? Okay, I'm going to move on to Trustee.
Sorry, I'm here. I apologize.
Okay, there you go.
Just to respond to Trustee and Tomasi, I did a little bit of homework just as we were talking here. In the school council's a guide for members, it does say on page 13 that in April 1995, the Ministry of Education issued Policy Program Memorandum 122, School Board Policies on School Councils, which required boards to develop policies that would establish school councils in the schools operated by them by June 1996. So I think that's the genesis of this original policy and the reason why there's a policy governing school councils.
Thank you, Superintendent Crowell. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question of clarification from you. You said we're going to park the procedure. Does that mean the procedure will not change at this point in time?
Yes, that is what Superintendent Crowell had said, that they're going to leave it without changes and seek feedback in the fall from school councils in regards to the changes. They got feedback from Cpec, which my understanding is you were in attendance at that meeting as well. And I think there's still appetite to still get further feedback in regards to potential changes and procedures. Correct me if am I correct, Superintendent Crowell?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Agnew, that's just a thumbs up? Okay. Trustee Ian Tomasi.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll pass.
Trustee Carabella.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. If there are no other comments right now, I would like to put in the amendment to include Halton Catholic District School Board recognizes that our school community exists to foster and exemplify our Catholic faith and values. So I'd like to move that.
And is that similar? I don't have it in front of me, but is that similar to language that's in other principles of our policies? Is it the same language?
Yes, you can. I can read where I kind of got it from. Later on today, we have the promotion, academic promotion, and there it reads, under principles, first bullet, the Halton Catholic District School Board recognizes that our school community exists to foster and Catholic values centered on the person of Jesus. So I just made it a bit more succinct that our school community exists to foster and exemplify our Catholic faith and values.
Okay. Is there any comments in regards to the proposed change from Trustee Carabella?
I think you need a seconder.
I think if we get consensus on a policy, once we pass it, once we do a vote on the change, we're okay. That's usually how we do it, Trustee Carabella. It's not changing. It's not changing the policy. You're not changing the intent of the policy. You're adding in a principle that exists in other policies. So that's how we've dealt with changes like that in the past. Is if you go back to other policy meetings, we've just done it as a consensus, and then we vote. We do a final vote on presenting this to the board. Trustee O'Brien.
Okay. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I would concur with that. That statement would keep us in line with some of our other policies to put the Catholic piece in there. And so I would support that.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee DeRosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll pass. Thanks.
Okay, so are there any concerns in regards to the proposed addition that Trustee Carabella has brought forward? Trustee Swan.
Through you, Madam Chair. So I just, I cut out when Trustee Carabella was saying the phrase that she was proposing. Would she be able to repeat that again?
Trustee Carabella, can you please repeat it?
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, Halton Catholic District School Board recognizes that our school community exists with Catholic faith and
Eleanor's muted.
Trustee Swan, did you get a good gist of that, or?
I'm sorry, was that?
Nancy, I can repeat it.
I can say it again, I'm sorry.
Janine, you know what, Helena, sorry, Trustee Carabella, you're cutting out and you're intermittent, but I think Janine has got it, so she can read it if that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The Halton Catholic District School to foster and exemplify our Catholic faith and values.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so is that any other comments in regards to that addition? Anybody opposed to adding that in? How's that sound? Okay, Trustee Carabella, did you have any other additions you wanted to add to the policy?
Thank you. I have two more, but I'll just, under requirements, even though the procedure is one thing, but I did think at the same time it's very important to have something under our requirements reflecting our Catholicity. So I was going to move that we amend the policy to include under requirements, all parents are encouraged to run for school council and Cpec and follow their respective bylaws governing elections or nominations, with the provision that no more than a maximum of 2 members be non-Catholic.
So Trustee Carabella, correct, and maybe Superintendent Paolo, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we're going to add something like that, do we need to get stakeholder feedback? Yep. So it's not something that we can just do here at policy. Superintendent Paolo, can you maybe speak to that?
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. If the change is significant and it's going to impact school communities, then it would be best to send the policy out for stakeholder feedback.
And can I have a follow-up? So if this is changed now, then it would coincide with sending it out with the procedures then. Just clarifying.
Sorry, Trustee Carabella, we're not sending the procedures out for feedback. They're going to seek feedback from council. Procedures are done by staff. They have to fall in line with policy, but they're getting feedback. Like they originally made the change, that's where it came back, was from feedback, but they're getting further feedback at this point. If we're adding it into the policy, we have to do what Superintendent Paolo said, because from what you just read, it seems it's not even similar to what is in the procedure. We would have to get stakeholder feedback in regards to that. So if you want to put it forward, you're more than welcome to, but understand that it has to go out for stakeholder feedback.
Okay. I was just going to follow up that I didn't think it was a significant change, because that's what we're doing in procedures now, is have the two non-Catholics. So I thought to clarify that, have that. So
but procedures change. Policies don't. Policies kind of govern procedures. Procedures are made up following policy. So if we're now changing the policy, which means there isn't movement for or room for change, then that is change that would require stakeholder feedback.
Thank you. I think other people.
Okay, so we've got Trustee DeRosa.
Simple question. Thank you, Madam Chair. So, notwithstanding that some of the recommendations that Trustee Carabella I'm in support of, are we getting back to the idea that maybe this motion is best delayed until we have the ability to get more information or feedback, if you will?
Thank you. Noted, Trustee DeRosa. Trustee O'Brien?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. This question of whether or not we can put this in policy or whether we put a procedure, I'm kind of struggling with this too. I wonder if we can get some feedback from our chair, Trustee Tomasi, who has a lot of experience in policy on that.
Do I have the floor, Madam Chair?
You do.
Or am I out of turn?
No, you can respond to Trustee Tomasi's. I would ask that you just respond because there's other people in the queue.
So, Trustee O'Brien, thanks for having so much faith in me. I think I stated my case. I think the portion that Superintendent Kroll referred to, that only refers to the establishment of councils. It does not have any effect on how councils are formed and how councils operate. That's all within their own jurisdictions within the bounds of the school. The only thing that the boards can do is provide policies that govern the institution they're in, but they cannot govern what school councils do. Thank you.
Sorry, I need to clarify a point on that as well. So if that is the case, Trustee Tomasi, does that mean then that the school councils could decide to have all non-Catholics on their committee, because we don't govern anything with whether it be through policy or procedure? So we could have student councils that are made up of all non-Catholic parents.
No,
because
that
basically,
would not follow my argument, simply because the Education Act accepts the fact that we as Catholics put everything through a Catholic lens, and because we have the right as Catholics to establish our own governance, we do so by being able to dictate what it is that we want our councils to the makeup of our school councils.
But where does that say that, Trustee Tomasi? Because you keep referencing that the Education Act says that they govern themselves. I understand that we're an institution on our own, but that's why we have policies that dictate what falls under what we're allowed to under the Education Act. But if school councils can have their own bylaws and have their own makeup based on what you've just said, then where does it say that they have to be all Catholic, or 2 out of 8 or 10 or whatever it may be have to be Catholic parents?
So Oxta has already spoken to that, and they've established the various makeups that councils can do, and that is to allow non-Catholics. For us to raise it unilaterally, that is HCDSB, we would be doing so without any input from ICE, which is our bishops that vet everything through a Catholic lens before any decision is made.
Sorry, okay, I think that we're just muddying the waters on this, so I'm going to move on to Trustee Duart.
Through you, Madam Chair, I must very respectfully disagree with the way the procedure has been changed randomly from 2 to 4. You change the procedure first, and then only when you when the trustees ask questions, you decide to go back and get some feedback. This has been a real waste of time. We should have upfront taken the extra time, gone back, got the feedback from school councils, and come back to trustees with some concrete data. There's been nothing done so far, and we are just spinning our wheels and wasting our time. I would suggest, and I would propose, that we move this policy to the fall whenever the procedure is ready, and we discuss this at that point in time. This is just a waste of time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Duart. Trustee DeRosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to voice the same sentiments. I think this is a decision that I think we should wait till we get more input from where we need to get the input and delay the process. We can agree to make the changes that Trustee Carabella is proposing, and we can certainly have a vote on that. But with respect to what's being put forward, I think we would be well advised to delay it till we've got more feedback.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. Trustee Agnew.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make a quick comment, maybe for Trustee Ian Tomasi's information. I know that you're a huge fan of the Hamilton Catholic Board. So they do say here, with respect to school councils, point 2 being that Catholic school councils shall function in accordance with the mission and vision of the board, and Catholic school councils shall function under the set of guidelines for the effective operation of Catholic school councils approved by the board. Just some information on how one of the other boards that you often like to reference is commenting on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. So we've had 2 people who have made reference to defer, and seeing as some of the changes that have been brought forward by Trustee Carabella could potentially require stakeholder feedback. And as we all know, parent councils or school councils don't actually come into effect until October. I think it might be best to defer the policy and the procedure until then. Can we get an agreement to defer this whole policy and procedure until the fall?
Yes.
I would support that, yes.
I'll second that.
Can we just till 2023 when I'm no longer a trustee?
Trustee Murphy, is that you agree to defer, a timeline to be determined?
If we can't get a vote on this tonight, then defer. But I would prefer just to vote on it and get it done.
Okay, so we've got 2 people who want to defer so far. So let's go through this in order. How does that sound? Because it sounds like there's a bit of a mix. So Trustee DeRosa, you want to defer. Trustee Tomasi wants to defer. Trustee Murphy, you don't want to defer?
No, I want to vote.
Okay, Trustee O'Hearns and Nota?
I would like to vote as far as Trustee Murphy. I agree with him because we're voting on the changes that have nothing to do with increasing the size of the
Okay.
committee. So I'll go ahead and vote.
Thank you. Trustee Agnew?
I would be prepared to vote.
Trustee Duarte?
Defer.
Trustee Carabella?
Defer.
Trustee O'Brien?
I would like to defer at least until the new councils are established.
Okay. And I would like to vote. Who did I miss here? Trustee Caratow?
I'd like to defer.
Trustee Swan?
I would like to also defer.
Madam
that
Chair, I
is-
think you're missing me.
No, Trustee DeRosa, you were the first person that I talked to.
I did say I would support it, yes.
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is 2, 4, 5 to defer, 4 to vote. So we will defer this until we'll put it back in the cycle. Superintendent Paolo, probably to the October meeting. Actually, that's our first meeting anyways, is October, so.
Thank you.
Through Madam Chair.
Yes, Trustee
So,
Duarte?
so would the procedure be, you'd have enough information for the procedure by that time? Is that what you're saying?
If based on some of the proposals that have come forward, the policy changes, it looks like it's going to have to go out for stakeholder feedback anyways. So I don't foresee this policy being changed until possibly the new year.
Yeah.
Okay. We also have to be aware that when we send stuff out to feedback for stakeholder feedback, that we have to be prepared to listen to stakeholder feedback.
Sure. Yep.
Trustee O'Brien, do you have your hand up?
No, I just wanted to say that I wanted to wait until the council were established, that's all.
Okay, so we will defer. Now we'll move on to policy I-42. Policy out of province staff. There are no changes noted to the policy that have been presented, so I'll read the motion. Could I get somebody to move that the policy committee recommend that policy I-42 out of province staff travel be forwarded to the May 19th, 2020 regular board meeting for approval? Trustee Agnew, seconded by anybody?
Bueller.
Anybody?
Bueller.
Murphy?
Trustee Murphy. Thank you. I'll open it up. Actually, I will hand it over to Superintendent Pinelli. If you want to address anything, there are no changes, however, if you'd like the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There are no changes at this point in time to the policy, and I'm open to any comments or suggestions from trustees.
Thank you, Superintendent Pinelli. Do we have any questions? That being said, we'll go to a vote. Trustee DeRosa. Trustee DeRosa?
Could you come back to me, Madam Chair?
Trustee O'Brien? Trustee O'Brien? Okay, Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Sorry, Trustee, sorry, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Caratow?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearns or Nota?
In favor?
Thank you. Trustee Swan?
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa?
In favor. I had to find my bearings, so I apologize for...
Trustee Murphy?
I know I have my bearings and I'm in favor.
Trustee Tomasi?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm following Patrick Murphy's bearings, and I'm also in favor.
That, I believe, is subjective, so we won't comment on that, but we will just mark you as in favor. Policy I-13, psychoeducation, psychological assessment of individual students. I will read the, actually, no, you know what? I'm going to hand this over to Superintendent Cipriano to open it up, open up the changes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You have before you, trustees, our policy 2-13, which is our psychoeducational psychological assessment of individual students. Before you, there's just a few changes that we've made in the policy, some that I'd like to highlight. We've made some changes around the language in principles and in the opening preamble around wait times. Appropriate monitoring and management of wait times in a conscientious manner from our staff. That was made based on a recommendation made by the Auditor General, I believe last fall. We've also, this policy was also one that was quite heavily involved Siak over our last two Siak meetings on April 27th and just last evening. So their comments and their recommendations, although maybe not directly reflected in the policy that you see before you, one thing that will be directly reflected is in that we will be attaching as a link to our special education plan, where we will outline more details around our psychological assessments, both internal and external, as per Siak's recommendations, and also more language around monitoring times. We also have on the line tonight our Chief of Psychology, Oliver Foisey, who either Oliver or myself would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Cipriano. We will start off with Trustee Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Superintendent Cipriano. Could you speak to the conscientious wait times? My understanding was in the past that you would hear wait times of more than a year, possibly 2 years. Is that been addressed? Is it a system issue? Is it a volume issue? Is it a capacity issue? So what is a reasonable wait time?
I guess the term reasonableness is in the eye of the beholder. What I can tell you, and I'll give you some historical data. So approximately 18 to 20 months ago, our wait times in our board were anywhere between 12 and 15 months, which included summers, which was probably at the higher end provincially, from probably the middle of the pack, a little bit at the higher end. Over the last 18 to 20 months, we utilized the ability to offer third-party assessments, external assessments in the summers, utilizing some funding that we had that we weren't able to use in our own internal assessment practices. And so we were able to utilize those external assessments to bring our wait times down to about 9 months. We were on the way and hoping to get to about an 8-month wait time, which provincially would be closer to the better end of boards across the province. Unfortunately, with COVID-19 and the shutdown, it's made it pretty difficult to continue assessments. We have continued some parts of the psychology assessment process, including post-assessment reviews with families and with schools. We're hoping that with our telehealth practice, we might be able to, at some point, if we continue to be in distance learning, we might be able to continue assessments in some way virtually. We're not sure quite yet what that would look like. I do have our Chief of Psychology also, Oliver. Oliver, do you have any further comments around wait times, reasonability, and that monitoring piece? One final thing before I let Oliver speak. What we will be including in our special education plan is we will be bringing to Siak 3 times a year a list of our wait times, not names, but data to Siak to demonstrate what our wait times are at those points in time in the year, what they were historically at those points in times, and if they've gone up or down since the last time we've reported to Siak. So that piece of monitoring, which wasn't in existence before, will be part of our new practice going forward. Oliver, do you have any other further comments?
Yes, can you hear me? Can
Yes.
everybody hear me? Okay. Yes, Madam Chair, I would just like to add, and to the question of the trustee, that we also need to consider that our wait times were high because we were seriously understaffed. 1.5 years ago, at some point, we only had 4 staff members because of difficulties hiring new staff. There's a shortage of psychology staff in the province. And I apologize, I have a beagle in the background. I would also say that we are currently constantly monitoring our wait times. We have the ability to meet monthly and live monitor the wait times and reassign staff as needed. And we also have in our special education annual plan, which you can see on our website, the ability to prioritize assessments for students where there's a need to respond quickly. For example, when it comes to placement internally for classes, as well as for referral to outside agencies. So we have flexibility in the system. And the last thing I would want to mention is that it is important to know that while students are on the wait list, that doesn't mean that they don't get programming and that they don't receive services. A lot of students that receive for assessments already are on an IEP, and in some circumstances, we actually want to see that whether programs that we put in place have an effect before we look at it from a diagnostic angle.
Thank you. So just before we continue on conversation, can I get a motion? Can I get somebody to make a motion to, let me read the actual motion here. That the policy committee recommends that policy II-13, psychoeducational psychological assessment of individual students, be forwarded along with amendments to the May 19th, 2020 regular board meeting for approval.
I'll move it.
So we've got Trustee and Tomasi.
Marvin.
And seconded by Trustee Marvin. Trustee Duart. Thank you. Trustee Carabella, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Trustee Murphy, did you have a follow-up with that?
So the only follow-up would be the question, just for my own edification. So our process is to handle all the assessments in-house versus reducing the backlog by sending them to third parties. Is that correct? And maybe you can talk about the ramifications of that.
Sure. So our current practice, we would be handling all assessments, internal requests for assessments in-house with our current staff of psychologists and associates. In the summer months, we do offer some of our staff the ability, we have funding to continue some assessments in the summer months in order to help reduce the wait times in the wait list. The piece from past summer that both Oliver and I spoke to, because we had a challenge, as our chief of psychology Oliver Foisey mentioned, we had a challenge in hiring what we were funded for full complement. We were able to utilize that funding to hire third parties. We went through a request for proposal process with our purchasing department, and we were able to significantly reduce a big chunk of that wait time by taking the funding that we had to hire internal psychology staff and pay external psychology staff to reduce that wait list. We typically wouldn't be doing that going forward because we have a full complement of psychology staff. Having said that, as I mentioned earlier, we do have the ability to pay them over and above their salary in the summers when they're technically not in employment to take on more assessments during the summer months, and we do almost every summer since I've been at the board level. I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
Thanks, Superintendent Cipriano. Okay, thanks, Trustee Murphy. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. Through Madam Chair, my question was about how it's being monitored. So I really appreciate that it's coming back to the Siak table three times a year. So I'm wondering if we should write that in that bullet, saying that, and that the middle bullet there in red, and add that wait times will be brought to the Siak committee.
Superintendent Cipriano, did you want to?
Yes, if I may address that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we work very closely with our Siak, as many of you know who sit on our Siak. And the language around the monitoring piece with specifics to the number of times that this information is brought to Siak, we discussed it, and we recognize that our special education plan, which is a public document, it's for all stakeholders, we review it on a yearly basis. The entire Siak reviews it, and it allows us to really to be very nimble with how we deliver special education in Halton Catholic. And so we felt that by referencing our special education plan in the policy and directing any stakeholder who's looking to see a little bit more specifically what is our stance around psychoeducational assessments, they would find that information in our special education plan. Our special education plan, again, is reviewed by Siak, and it is reviewed on a yearly basis. We don't see that level of detail really being appropriate in the policy, considering that it is documented publicly already and it's referenced in the policy.
So a follow-up would be, if I'm a parent, I can access that special education plan to find out more than just going to the policy.
Absolutely. There will be a hyperlink in the policy and in the procedure, and we're trying to find a way to hyperlink it directly to the pages that are referenced on the assessment, because our special education policy, I'm not too proud to say that is about 100 pages long. So it would be a challenge. So we're going to try and find a way to take a parent or any stakeholder who's looking to see a little bit more information in that hyperlink, if it could take them directly to that first section of psychological assessments, which outlines all of our practices around psychological assessments, including internal assessments and external assessments.
Okay, and may I have a follow-up as well?
Well, go ahead, Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. I'm just thinking, if I'm a parent and I'm new to this, my child says I need to go for assessment, and I go to this policy. I'm not sure that it was mentioned in this policy about going to external psychologist and what our process is for doing that. And I wondered if something should be written in there, just general, about the process if a parent does choose to go to an external psychologist, how they get walked through the system after that. Thank you.
Superintendent Cipriano, can you?
Sure. Again, our special education plan has outlined specifically the external assessment process for parents to follow. Our special education consultants in supporting our special education resource teachers, our CERTs in our schools, are well aware of that. And also, when parents begin the special education journey, they're given a parent guide for special education, which is obviously not 100 pages. It's a very cut down version of special education services and programs, and that type of information around internal, external, they would most definitely get from our CERTs in our schools and our principals in our schools.
Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Cipriano. Trustee Agnew.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to echo what Superintendent Cipriano has said, and your point is well taken, Trustee Carabella. I don't know, honestly, though, that a parent that's starting on this journey, that the first place that they would go would be right to this policy. I do think that there would be other mechanisms and other things that would come first. Should their child be requiring a psycho-ed assessment, or should they be looking into that as an option? I think, again, they would speak with the CERT, there would be guide available to them, there'd be other conversations before I think that they would get to this policy. So, you know, always being transparent that I love sharing as much information with parents as possible, but I don't know that this is the first place that they would go. And, you know, I do also like the fact that we are going to incorporate easy access to the Spec Ed plan and make sure that the information in that Spec Ed plan is also very fulsome. So that was it.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Looks like there's no further questions. So we'll go to a recorded vote on policy II-13. Trustee DeRosa?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Trustee Caratow?
In favor.
Trustee Swan?
In favor.
Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Nota?
In favor.
Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee Tomasi?
In favore.
Thank you. The policy will be presented to the board meeting of May 19th, 2020. Moving on to policy II-18, non-motorized and non-licensed motorized transportation safety. So I'm going to read the motion. Can I get somebody to move that the policy committee recommends that policy II-18, non-motorized and non-licensed motorized transportation safety be forwarded to the May 19th, 2020 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it.
Trustee O'Hearn-Nota, and seconded by?
I seconded.
Trustee Carabella. Okay, and Superintendent Paolo, I'll hand it over to you for discussion.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. There are no changes to the policy aside from adding a reference to the list of references. There's a link to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation, which is hyperlinked to include bicycle safety information as well as helmet requirements. My understanding is the last time this policy was reviewed, there was a fulsome review and many edits made at that time.
Thank you. Is there any questions? All right, so we'll go to a vote. Trustee Swan?
In favor.
Trustee Caratow?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Tomasi?
In favor. It's not me, it's this thing is slow.
Sure. Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Nota?
In favor.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee Duarte?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa?
In favor.
Thank you. The policy will be presented to the May 19th, 2020 board meeting for approval. Moving on to policy III-12, academic promotion. Oh, sorry. I'll read the motion. Can I get somebody to move that the policy committee recommends that policy III-12, academic promotion, be forwarded to the May 19th, 2020 regular board meeting for approval? Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by?
I can.
Trustee Duarte. And we'll hand it over to Executive Officer O'Hara.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. There is no recommendations in terms of any wording changes to the policy. The only thing I wanted to bring to trustees' attention is that many dioceses are reviewing their practices with respect to providing pastoral letters of references. That's being delayed because of COVID-19. So it's entirely possible that we may need to bring this back at a future date to adjust to new practices that the parishes and the dioceses are discussing. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Executive Officer O'Hara. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. I have a few little things first before a bigger thing I want to discuss, but I wondered that we should reference policy 11I-11, the hiring and promotion policy, academic and non-academic personnel, sort of referenced related policies and procedures. And we're okay.
I'm sorry. So you want to add in reference to III-11?
Yes, I'm wondering if it should be referenced.
Can you just explain why you think it needs to be? Sorry, Trustee Carabella, you got a lot of feedback going on there. Can you just explain why you think that belongs there? I think I might have missed that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I don't have feedback. I thought that it's about academic promotion, and policy III-11 is about hiring and hiring and promotion policy of academic and non-academic personnel. I just thought it was related. Just an observation. I'm okay either way, but I just thought I'd mention it.
Executive Officer O'Hara, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're two different items, but maybe you can address Trustee Carabella's question.
Again, thank you for the question through the chair. They are referencing two separate issues. So I'm not sure that there's the need for a link, but I'm always in your hands.
Okay, Trustee Carabella, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I have a question, and then I have a question about. So it says it refers to other positions of responsibility, and I just wanted clarification on some of those other. They list a few examples, but I'm wondering myself if this example includes the systems chaplain and the equity officer. And then also some of the religious courses that we're offering now to principals, I think, or people who want to be principals, if those come under this policy, those positions.
Executive Officer O'Hara, do you want to take that?
And through you, I guess I could address part of it. So when it's referring to any other position of responsibility, again, these are academic positions. It really is a placeholder in case we create other academic positions of responsibility in the future. But we used to have system principals, and certainly there is the possibility that the provincial government could change the Education Act definition of principal to allow that again. Currently, we don't have that position, but again, it could always be created. In terms of looking at system chaplains, they're not academic positions, so that they don't fall under this particular policy. And I think I may have missed one piece of Helena's question. Could I ask Trustee Carabella to just repeat the last part that I missed?
Sorry, there.
About the inclusion officer and about the religion courses that are given from our board now. They used to be given by OECT, I understand, for principals or people who wanted to upgrade. And have certain qualifications, and now our board gives those. I'm wondering about whether
Yes, okay, yes, thank you. And again, through the chair, the equity and inclusion position, the senior manager, equity and inclusion, that is not an academic position. It's a staff position, but it's not on the academic side, so it doesn't require to be a person who is Catholic. And with respect to the courses that are taught, and yes, they are all through the curriculum department, we would go and find course instructors for those positions. They're not considered positions of responsibility under our definition currently.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Does that answer your questions?
Thank you. Yeah, I have something else, but the others thank you.
I was going to say, can we put you back in the queue because we've got other trustees who would like to ask some questions, okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Trustee Duart, you have the floor.
To you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the next section under principles. Can we scroll up a little bit? The requirements. I'm looking at the fourth bullet there, and it says the Director of Education shall have the discretion to waive or amend the qualifications and requirements in individual situations in order to ensure that only the best candidates are appointed. To my mind, to get the best candidates, you need to have the qualifications. So I'm wondering why, in what context this has been put here. It appears to me that there is a possibility of breaking the system that's in place. So if somebody could clarify on this particular bullet, why that's in there and why do we need to break the rules?
I think Director Daly is going to answer that one.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. This particular point would be used rarely, obviously, but there could be a situation, for example, like the situation that we're in currently, where a person may apply for a position of responsibility. Our general requirement would be they need a pastoral reference from within the last year. Pastors are not giving out references right now. So if it was 6 months in arrear or a year in arrears, then we might consider that to have the candidate maybe write a profession of faith and then get the accompanying documentation when they're able to get it. So that would be one example.
Madam Chair, follow up?
Yes, go ahead, Trustee Duart.
To me, Madam Chair, qualification to me, in my mind, it's something education related. I'm just wondering, a letter from the pastor, how great a qualification that is. So I'm just wondering whether that would fit into the category of qualification. Qualification to me in my mind is education, somebody who's got the experience and stuff like that. So I'm really not convinced about this thing, but if Director Daly can explain to me in a better terms with a better example, I'd appreciate that.
Well, I can give you, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I think I provided you with an example where this would actually come into place. And the phrase is qualifications and requirements. So it is a requirement for our academic positions and for our teaching staff. They have to meet certain requirements, but it could happen where because of a particular circumstance, they can't meet that requirement at the time. So I think that's probably the only instance where I could think of it being waived off the top of my head.
Thank you, Director Daly. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. To Director Daly, this bullet caught my attention too. And your example is a good one. COVID-19 has really made it hard to assess certain people and getting certain papers. But this bullet has been in this policy for a long time. Can you give us another example, like once the pandemic is over, where you would waive qualifications and requirements?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair. To be honest with you, Trustee O'Brien, I can't think of another circumstance off the top of my head. As you've noted, this policy has been in place for a long time, and it's been reviewed a couple of times. So I can only assume that it's very rarely put into place. But there is a bit of a catch in the next bullet that where those decisions are made, we would report that back to the board.
Okay. And a follow-up question, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Since we are in the business of education, aren't we kind of downplaying what we actually do by waiving qualifications, Director Daly?
No, I would actually argue the exact opposite. I would say when we're hiring people to positions of responsibility, that in a case where a particular requirement or qualification can't be met in an extenuating circumstance, a hiring panel would still want to hire the best candidate possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Tomasi?
Through you, Madam Chair. So if you can go back up, one of the positions on the list is superintendents. And we know for a fact that both the Education Act and there's a requirement that boards, in order to even consider somebody for the superintendent position, one, they will have to have been granted permission by the ministry, and the only way you get granted permission by the ministry is to submit your qualifications. They clear you, and within 15 to 21 days, they in turn come back and say to the board, Mr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so meets the qualifications. For you to put that bullet in there, you would want to circumvent that, and that person would not be able to be appointed because he or she would not have the blessing, or actually the proper protocol, of the Ministry of Education. So I find that bullet, as Trustee O'Brien said, it's watering down the qualifications of individuals. And if we look at our own requirements within positions of responsibility, we have certain requirements in there which have already been watered down. For instance, the requirement for a superintendent is 2 years having acted as principal, whereas you go down to vice principal, and a vice principal would require 5 years of experience in a supervisory capacity before they would be considered. So I would say that I would not give that power to the Director of Education and Secretary to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Tomasi. Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've just been listening to the comments, and it was something I also wanted to bring up when I saw that paragraph, that bullet. This is my second term as trustee, and I really don't remember a report coming. It says in that following bullet that to implement this policy, and we'll make regular reports regarding implementation of this policy, and if there was anybody waived or amended. So I was going to amend the policy and ask to delete that bullet out so that there isn't that discretion given.
So then just so I follow this, if we were to delete that out, then where's the adherence to this then? It's still, the Director of Education still has the discretion under between bullet 4 and bullet 5. Like, you're looking to take out bullet 4?
If we take out bullet 4, they can still make reports about the implementation of this policy, but then there wouldn't be any instances where these qualifications and requirements have been waived or amended.
Well, that's actually, there's 2 bullets that make reference to that. So you wouldn't only be taking out bullet 4, you would be taking out bullet 5. Because read the last part of bullet 5, which says where qualifications and requirements have been waived or amended.
That's right, just that line.
Assistance.
I'm trying to understand. So do we have any mitigating circumstances as to why we're bringing these changes forward? I'm trying to understand what the experience has been with this. I don't know of, and we have to be careful. Actually, sorry, I got to be careful that we say any of this because this would actually have to be brought in camera. I'm just trying, just a simple yes or no. Is there a mitigating circumstance that we need to change something that has been in practice for at least 4 years?
So I would say point of order that this matter would
Sorry,
have.
I'm asking Trustee Carabella to understand what she's going, Trustee Tomasi. I'm asking her a question.
I'm reacting to your caution that perhaps if we delve into this particular matter, then we would have to go in camera.
I'm not asking for names. I'm just asking for a simple yes or no. If there is a belief that something, anyways, I'll forget it. Executive O'Hara, Executive Officer O'Hara, you have a comment? Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you, and through you, perhaps I can clarify. So in terms of, again, when we would waive some qualifications, a very good example and something that you would see regularly brought to you would be acting positions. And so we would bring acting department heads, it could be an acting consultant, where we've tried to fill the position with someone who was fully qualified. We haven't been able to find someone, and so we bring someone for that school year only. So that is something that is very, very regularly done, and is something that we do bring before you. Obviously, when we are looking for any of these positions of academic responsibility, leadership positions, we're looking for someone who is fully qualified. There is provisions under the Education Act in those circumstances where a board is not able to find a fully qualified superintendent or principal or vice principal, etc., to bring in someone who does not necessarily have all of the qualifications. So there is exceptions that are built under the Education Act for those unique circumstances. We're very fortunate in Halton. A lot of it is because of our leadership program and certainly our location, where we have lots of interest in people wanting to work for our board who are fully qualified. But I can tell you throughout the province,
You know, the sheer idea of being able to change a job description or a qualification in order to accommodate a particular situation is, I've never seen it in practice in my experience, and I've witnessed large organizations. This type of power lies in the hands of a business owner who owns his own company and basically decides what he wants. I don't think we are a publicly funded organization who are accountable. Our role as a board is oversight. We want to let our directors and our operating people do the job that they know how to do. But this is, in my view, is a little bit overstretched. Maybe there's some compromise in order to accommodate the exceptions. But I'll leave it to my fellow trustees to consider my comments.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. Trustee Murphy, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's always two sides to a coin. So if we look at the other side of this by removing these two clauses, what's the impact? The impact is potentially not being able to make an effective decision in an operating business to put somebody in place who in the estimation or the view of the senior managers can do the job. So don't forget, it's implicit in your job to do it well. So when we hire the director of education, it's implicit that he's going to do his job and make the most effective decisions for the benefit of the organization. If you try and structure it so
Can't hear.
Guarantee the director of education the ability to make effective management decisions, and then he is accountable to provide of the change. I think it's unreasonable a candidate who's a slam dunk, if we can use those terms. So the director is responsible for his job. It's implicit that he's going to act in good faith and make sure that he makes the best decision. If it turns out to be the wrong decision, then he's accountable to the board for that decision. If we try and control and structure, he's going to be reading the rule book every day with his nose in the rule book instead of being able to perform his job. So our role is to support him in performing that job and not to try and tie his hands. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent O'Hara. So, Superintendent O'Hara, are you saying that you regularly waive qualifications for acting positions?
Again, through the chair, acting positions by their very nature, and when we report those to you, are that an individual doesn't have all of the qualifications. And an example of that would be, and the normal example that would come forward to you would be a department head, so an acting department head position. We've already posted it as a full headship. No one has applied who's been fully qualified. We reposted as an acting headship. And say, for example, the person has only completed half of the leadership part 1. So they've only completed 1 of the 2 years of the leadership program. So they're not considered to be fully qualified. They are assigned to that position for that academic year only. And then we repost it as a department head for the following year.
follow-up question, Madam Chair, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, Trustee O'Brien.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent O'Hara. That being the case, then it seems there's a lack of leadership pool that you need to draw from for all these positions. Could there maybe be something systemic that we need to develop, more leadership among our rank and file teachers?
I'll start answering that question and then maybe pass it over to the director if I've missed anything. We do have a wholesome leadership program, and so we certainly encourage our employees to get involved and to go through what is considered a rigorous program. We are now in a situation with COVID-19 where we have a whole crop of individuals that are trying to work through that program, and they're not able to get through it this year because, for all intents and purposes, that program has now had to be suspended. So it's another example where we're doing our best. We've got lots of employees that are interested in leadership, but they're not going to be able to complete their leadership part 2 this year. And some of the individuals that are in leadership 1 are not going to be able to complete their leadership 1 this year. Another example of where that may create a gap in the following year for people coming forward who are fully qualified to meet our needs. Still good people, still working to get through all the hoops. It's the reality of our day.
Does that answer? Did we lose you?
No, you haven't lost me. I guess I'm just thinking this policy has been around for a long time, long before COVID-19 was here. I know, Director Daly, you value leadership and the journey to it. It just seems that I know a school can be made or broken by a good leader, and if we're taking out qualifications even for temporary postings, having been in schools where there was bad leadership, I wonder if, Trustee Carabella is saying, like, it's giving license to the devil to take out the qualifications. I'm just saying my opinion. Thank you.
Director Daly?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things in response to Trustee O'Brien. I feel bad that you had those experiences in the boards that you worked in. This wasn't one of those boards. We typically do have a good crop of candidates for our leadership positions. Secondary school department head might be one where we sometimes have to post an acting headship. Certainly at the VP, principal, and superintendent level over the last number of years, we've had plenty of good internal and external candidates as well. And in terms of a headship or other position of responsibility, we post them. If people don't come forward that have all of the qualifications, then we need to repost them in an acting way so that somebody fills the position for a temporary amount of time. And sometimes those people will get the qualifications. Sometimes there's a little bit of ebb and flow in terms of people who are qualified.
Thank you, Director Daly. I'm going to move on to Trustee Tomasi.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So let me go back to the superintendent as an example. So we know that there is a certification process for principals, vice principals, and superintendents. The ministry says boards are responsible for the recruitment and selection of SOs. However, prior to appointing a supervisory officer, a board must obtain the minister's confirmation that the person to be appointed is eligible for the position. Eligibility would require that all the requirements have been met.
in many instances, we know that doesn't happen. We circumvent the rules, which allows certain people to get ahead while others are fully qualified to take on those positions. So I would not give this responsibility to our director or to our executive officer to make that call. I think that we need to change the policy to reflect that we meet the government guidelines. There is a whole document that speaks to certification of leadership roles. And I think we need to stay within those bounds. Thank you, Trustee Tomasi. Director Daly?
Yeah, just to make a comment, I guess. Trustee Tomasi is correct that when we want to hire somebody in the position of superintendent, we do have to get approval from the ministry, which we've gotten in any of the superintendent hirings we've done. So we do put forward those names and get approval. So we've done that. And I think also in terms of saying it's a power given to the director, I think that with trustees now involved in the hiring committee for superintendents, that might change that view of what the director's power is. That's all.
Thank you, Director Daly. I'm going to go to, looks like we've got Trustee DeRosa. And can I just remind trustees to please ensure that your microphone and your video is off when you are not up to speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little leery of where this conversation is headed. My point here, and I want to make sure it's absolutely clearly understood, is not to hand tie the director. And I say director, I don't mean necessarily, it's not the individual who sits in that chair at this stage of the game. Anybody could end up in that chair. My point here is to reach a proper balance between flexibility and without basically tying people's hands. And in that vein, I think that this particular paragraph, this particular bullet point is wide open. So that's my discomfort with it. It's not at all to try to take away the operating responsibilities of the director. Okay. Somewhere there has to be, certainly this clause is not appropriate. Somehow it has to be, we have to figure out a better way to make sure that the director's hands are not too tight, because what we're dealing with here, I hope we are dealing with a clause that is there for the dealing of exceptions, and certainly not the rule. So that's my discomfort, is that this is fraught with all sorts of potential wrongs. When there are circumstances that are appropriate to make the exceptions, those can be talked about. Those, maybe they can come back to the board. Maybe there's some consultation with the chair. When these situations actually present themselves, I think they could be dealt with on an exceptional basis. But this gives, in my view, this particular paragraph just opens the floodgates. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. So I just need to understand what you said. I'm going to paraphrase it. So what you're saying is you don't agree with what Trustee Tomasi says, but you agree with the removal of the 2 bullet points, which does the which is what it takes away the power of the director's discretion.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't, I was trying to make the point that I don't want this conversation to degenerate into places where it doesn't need to go. I'm expressing again my dissatisfaction with this bullet point, and somehow there has to be a way that we can remove it. But at the same time, figure out a way that when an exception presents itself, where the director is faced with having to deal with a situation, somehow that is brought back to the board, maybe, or I don't know the solution. There are better people around the table who can. I know what I want to achieve. I don't know necessarily how we get there.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. We're going to try to hear new comments around the table now. We haven't heard from Trustee O'Hearns or Nota, and she's in the mix, so I'm going to pass it on to you, Trustee O'Hearn.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So I'll try to be very quick and to the point. So it's great. I'm a fan of policies, procedures, standard operating procedures, but in all of those procedures, there needs to be a little gray area. The conversation about by taking bullet points out to have some discretion to our director is not tying his hands. I absolutely disagree with that statement. We are tying the hands, and I caution trustees, be careful what you wish for, because if we take away discretion and someone cannot be given that position, we may not have anyone in that position to take care of our teachers and our children that we're bound to govern. So I please caution fellow trustees, be careful what you wish for.
Thank you, Trustee and Trustee O'Hearns or Nota. Trustee Carabella, do you have anything new to add to the discussion, or are we going back to the same bullet points?
Yeah, nothing new.
Okay. Trustee Tomasi, do you have anything new to add to the discussion?
I do, but I'll pass.
Okay. So are there any other comments in regards to the remainder of the policy?
Through you, Madam Chair, sorry, I will then put my hand up again. I have not a new comment, but I did move that amendment if somebody wants to second it.
Well, I think we actually probably should be very formal in regards to this. And I also want to ensure that we are in line with what the Education Act says, that we're not changing it. Again, I'm if nobody else has anything, if we're going to move this, then I would like to weigh in on this, and I essentially pass the gavel to you, Trustee Agnew, to chair, because I would like to speak to this. I have some major concerns on this, and I will reiterate what Trustee O'Hearns or Nota says. If we look at the end of the day, if things are happening, if the Education Act is very clear and it says that qualifications have to be met, and they're not being met, then there's ways to deal with that. The policy has to fall in line with the Education Act. This policy doesn't go against the Education Act, and permission still has to be granted. And we heard Director Daly say that he does actually get permission when he's required to when SOs are appointed. So I'm not sure what we're looking to achieve, except for to become directly involved in the hiring now of staff, which we already now sit on the recommendation committee for the interviews. So my concern is there's this group of trustees sitting at the table right now. What happens when the new group of trustees comes to the table and they have different views and different mindsets? We're not here to manage. We're here to oversee governance, the governance piece. And we're now interjecting ourselves into the operations of hiring and directing staff. And I think it's a very slippery slope. And I would actually like to not actually deal with this at this point. And I would actually move to defer this at this point until we can actually make sure that we're not, and actually compare to other boards and what they do in regards to hiring. Because I think this is something that if we don't have some discretion, we're going to leave ourselves shorthanded.
I'll second that.
That was Vince.
I think Vince.
That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince. That was Vince Can I ask that we take a quick 5-minute break? And we'll return. I wish I knew how I could set the timer on here, but it's 9:15. We'll return at 9:20. Just for anybody who needs to have a quick break. I need a quick break. Okay, thank you.
I'm good with that.
you're recommending this change?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we've had a discussion and heard from others. I would echo what they're saying, that if we are looking to hire, that there should be qualifications that don't get waived and amended. I'm okay with your suggestion to defer and to get more information, and that's where I'm at.
Well,
I think it was seconded. I'm not sure.
Well, we're going back to dealing with the original. Are you saying you're withdrawing now your amendments? We're not as formal as we are.
Okay. Well, in principle, I don't want to. I think there's some validity there, and I've heard comments, and I've heard that there could be compromises. So I'm actually thinking your motion to defer could be file and interesting into getting some more information.
So unfortunately, Carabella,
to address that.
Trustee Carabella, if we were to say that I made a motion, I didn't actually make a motion. It was a comment. It was a suggestion. I didn't actually make a motion.
Okay. Okay.
Sure.
Sorry, my computer died, so I can't type in the chat box, but I'm just curious with the conversation around deferring, what additional research do we think can be done in order to make a decision on this matter? I guess that's the part that everybody sort of made their comments, and if we defer it, to what end are we deferring this? Is it just so that people on the opposite sides of this go and get their arguments together? What would be the purpose in deferring?
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Trustee O'Brien?
I would like to see it deferred. It would give us more time to think about it, talk to each other, and maybe look at other boards, see other common practices. So to make a decision tonight where we seem to be so divided and not coming from a position of strength, I think we need time.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee DeRosa?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to voice those sentiments. I don't think anyone is in a position right now, and I certainly don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I'm certainly not in a position to take a clear-cut decision. I've expressed my position on this. I'm not comfortable with the clause and moving forward, so I need to think of how we best strike that balance I referred to. And I think probably some fellow trustees around the table feel the same way. So I would support the deferral.
Thank you, Trustee Duart.
So, Madam Chair, yes, I think I started this whole thing with bullet number 4. So I'm just a statement, and it's something which caught my eye up front. That's why I asked the question. But it took a lengthy decision. But I would like to, quite frankly, see what other boards are doing, as I normally do my own research. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm okay to defer that thing till next time or whenever it comes back. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Duart. Is there any other comments? Sorry, Director Daly.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I just do want to note to trustees that with regards to the position of acting department head, there is language in our secondary collective agreement around that position. So it's not quite as simple as just dealing with the policy, just so trustees are aware.
Yes, thank you, Director Daly. We do have to be mindful that there is collective agreements that are part of our board. Trustee and Tomasi?
Through you, Madam Chair, my hand up to put a motion on the table to defer this matter. So I'm looking for a seconder.
I will second.
Can you please take it to a vote?
Can I actually chair the meeting, Trustee and Tomasi?
You are chairing the meeting.
Thank you. But in future, I'm glad to know that, you know, as sitting around the table, that we have the liberty to do that. So thank you for opening that door up for me. So that being said, we have a motion from Trustee and Tomasi to defer. We have a seconded by Trustee Duart. We will go to a vote. Trustee DeRosa.
I'm in favor of delay, or... Okay.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee Agnew.
Opposed.
Trustee O'Hearn-Zernota.
Opposed.
Trustee Murphy.
Opposed.
Trustee Tomasi.
Favor.
And I am opposed as well. However, Trustee Caratow.
I'm opposed.
Trustee Swan.
Opposed.
Okay, so the motion carries. It will be deferred to the
October.
The October is our first meeting. However, you know, trustees have talked about getting information. I would suggest then that we look at multiple as opposed to just cherry picking and choosing boards that tend to support their position. Yes, Trustee Duart. Sorry, did I miss you in the line?
I'm sorry. That's we're not talking about anything, so I didn't type in there. But if you don't mind, can I just make a comment? Madam Chair, based on what you're saying.
Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Duart.
So as you're suggesting, yes, can we take a look at all the boards in and around the GTA, please? That's always my point of reference.
All right, so we're moving on then.
Can I just ask a question? When are we deferring until?
We didn't give a date, so it'll be based on the cycle and based on when the information comes back.
Okay.
Moving on now in the agenda.
Point of order. I'm sorry, Trustee.
I'm sorry, what is your point of order, Trustee O'Brien?
I'm in part of clarification. What do you mean when it comes back on the cycle? I don't understand that.
Well, we have research to do, right? Trustees have said that they'd like to do comparisons. So once the comparisons are gathered, we'll go through the process of bringing it back onto the table.
So when will that be? I think we need a ballpark figure here.
I didn't make the motion to defer it, so you tell me.
Can we go back to Trustee Tomasi on that one, please?
No.
We've already taken a vote on it, though, Trustee O'Brien.
But I think we need some kind of idea of when it's going to be deferred to.
So our next agenda, we have quite a bit of items on the next agenda for action items in the next in June. So I would suggest it would be the first meeting in October when it would be the first time we'd be able to look at it.
So meeting in October. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to discussion items, 5.1, bullying and prevention, and that is me. So you'll see a discussion report here. So I wanted to open this up to trustees. I've had several experiences this year as a trustee, and I'm not going to use specifics. I'm not going to get into details, but just in feedback from parents who have experienced some type of bullying or alleged bullying within their schools, and how the process plays out. I know there are changes that are coming down from the ministry. I know there's a review and stakeholder feedback I think it's already been completed. However, being proactive in this and prior to us returning back to normal, I would really like us all to turn our heads to making some much needed changes to this policy. What I've experienced is a lot of the times the victims, those alleging that they've been bullied, are sometimes left to feel that they've done something wrong, and they are the ones to have to make the decision or to make a change in their life to fix that item. And I think looking at something that allows the school to be able to deal with bullying or alleged bullying in an effective manner, that because it is difficult as the person investigating and trying to deal with it and trying to manage it, particularly in the elementary level, because you are dealing with young children. A lot of times they need counsel on their behaviors and how to rectify it. So it's not always cut and dry. However, I think there's a way for us to work together to try to maybe make some more clear suggestions on how to deal with some of these issues. I by no means am an expert in this area. I only know from experience and from what I've heard about in this last year, and I open it up for any other trustees if they've had any experiences or if this is something that's on their radar. But I would just like to take a proactive approach on this. I know, like I said, again, changes are coming down from the ministry. Trustee DeRosa? Trustee DeRosa?
Yeah, I stepped away, so would you go to the next?
Yes, Trustee Dewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have had several cases over the past year and a half where parents have come to trustees, and we have discussed with senior staff issues and specific cases, which I will not talk about right now. It's not in this forum. But what have we grabbed from those particular instances, and what have we implemented in these policies? There has to be some lessons that we learned over there, and that we need to kind of take care of and make sure that those do not occur again. So can staff just update us and tell us what has been done to incorporate some of those changes? Number one. Number two is there has been a move by the town, by the province, by the minister. We have been receiving letters and asking our support. So what have we done to incorporate those kind of the way they want to go? What have we done to incorporate some of those ideas in the policy?
Trustee Dewart, there's been no changes that have been proposed at this point. It's not in the cycle. I'm bringing it forward for discussion.
Okay.
This will be coming up because there is feedback that will be coming down from the ministry.
Okay.
We don't know when. God knows with everything that's happening, where it will fall in the line of order of those other things that need to be dealt with. So I was bringing this forward to take more of a proactive approach to it based on experiences that we've had working with staff, to try to create, I guess, more of a wholesome approach to it where we have better outcomes.
So Madam Chair, just a follow-up. So have we captured those issues that we have had in the past? Do we have a kind of a running list where we plan to put it into this policy?
I have notes from what I've dealt with from stakeholders and the issues that have come forward to myself. I can't speak for the other trustees in Oakville. My experience in dealing with parents and sometimes even with the students. I'm sure that the superintendents have a handle on what's happening within their own schools if that information is given to them, right? Because a lot of this information is dealt with at the school level, and it doesn't necessarily always come up to the board. But maybe would that be something that would be kept track of, Director Daly? Would you know?
Through you, Madam Chair, certainly that would be a conversation that our family schools superintendents would have with their principals. We would track disciplinary action, particularly with regards to suspensions around bullying. I think we do a little bit to Trustee Dwart's question. Do we reflect back on instances where we didn't have a good outcome and try and change that approach? I would say yes. I say we also reflect back on instances where there was a reasonable outcome So I think it's a little bit of both. I could probably turn it over for a little bit more detail at the school level to any of our family of school superintendents, or I guess I would open it up to them for any further comment.
Any superintendent want to comment? Okay, in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll move on to, Superintendent Kroll.
Oops. Good evening. Sorry about that. Through you, Madam Chair. I can tell you that we do track suspensions around the number of incidents that are related to bullying. And in terms of my own family of schools, and I think I can speak for the other family of school superintendents, when we do hear about these issues, we are proactive. We do work with families. We do work with principals. We do follow up. I'm thinking of an issue I dealt with earlier this year at one of my schools where I became directly involved to try to help resolve the issue. We want to be proactive in our approach, but we also want to make sure that we're reactive when these issues come up. So I can tell you with confidence that, when these matters are reported to schools, that schools take them seriously, that I feel like our response is reactive as well as proactive. There's always ways in which we can improve, but speaking of my own family schools, I'm pleased with the response that we have to bullying. If that answers the question.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm on delay here, and I can't unmute fast enough.
That's okay.
Thank you, Superintendent Kroll. We've got Trustee Swan.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I think I can provide a little bit of perspective here just because students have reached out to me in regards to this probably throughout the year as well as previous years. And really one of the, I guess, sticking points for bullying in regards to this policy is the fact that social media has just become so prolific. People have just found new ways to harm other people with their words. And, I think in the policy, it captures where it says bullying includes bullying by electronic means, including creating a web page or a blog. I think that, I think if we're just limiting it to just a web page or a blog, I think we're missing kind of the points where, students may be creating fake accounts, for instance, fake social media accounts. And I think that might have to be addressed. But I think there's also a real need to also emphasize, I guess, accountability on usage of social media platforms, because I think that bullying also tends to be more frequent there as well. And I think personally, I've seen this kind of get worse over the years.
Thank you, Trustee Swan. Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I just a quick question and then some comments about it. Do we know when the ministry feedback is expected?
No, we don't. The survey has happened. I think everybody was given a link to participate in that, but there is no proposed timeline where the recommendations will come back.
Okay, thank you. I have received calls and been involved, and I always ask parents, to follow the protocol, go to the teacher, go to the principal, and sometimes they're stuck at the principal and not knowing that if an issue isn't resolved, to go to the superintendent. So I think there's needs to be like a very clear process for parents whose children are being bullied, that they if they're not seeing results, they know where to go. I've seen or heard and where the victim actually is asked to make adaptations, not the aggressor. So an example would be the victim is told to supervise the junior kindergarten class, and the aggressor gets to go outside during recess. And I'm just, I just don't understand some of the approaches. Maybe we can be taught or, made to understand why, but the feeling is that the that when the child who is being bullied does speak out to an adult, that they don't feel they're heard. It becomes a he said, she said, and the burden of proof sort of falls on the victim, and yet kids do it out of the sight of teachers, and then nobody wants to be a bystander, but they also don't want to be the next one in line to get bullied if they tell. So I don't know what system we have, but somehow it's not working in some regard like that. That's what I've come across. Some other examples too, but I'm cognizant of not saying too much here in case I disclose or somebody could figure out who I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You started off this conversation by asking us our experiences, Madam Chair, and I'll just tell you what I found. I don't get a lot of emails about bullying. I think the Halton kids are pretty good. However, when I do get them, they seem to be the same schools, and the bullying seems to be quite severe. So when it's good, overall it's really good, but the place where it's bad, they're quite disturbing stories. So I'm just sharing you what you've asked us to share.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. And any other comments? So is there an appetite to look at this and make some recommendations in moving forward with this policy, or do we want to wait until the ministry comes down and work and coincide with what the ministry recommendations are with whatever comes out when it comes out? Trustee Tomasi. Oh, sorry, Trustee Duarte, then Trustee Tomasi.
Through you, Madam Chair, the earlier we get this policy up and running, it will show that we are proactive, and there have been issues that have been coming to us, and our ratepayers think that we are not doing anything and we are not serious about it. So I'm thinking the earlier we get this policy up and running is maybe a good time, but when is that early? When would the government when would the recommendations come out? I'm not sure about that, but the earlier the better. I didn't give any answer, but earlier the better.
Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Trustee Tomasi.
I concur with Vice Chair Duarte. I believe that it's imminent that we get this going right now, and that if there are any changes and new guidelines, then we could proceed to include them later on.
Thank you, Trustee Tomasi. Trustee DeRosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to pass my turn because I've heard what I've wanted to say. So, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. Trustee O'Brien.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I think it is good to deal with this as soon as possible. However, if the ministry does come down with a lot of guidelines, we could work through the whole policy and have to rework it again. I wonder if sometimes it's not so much the policy as much as the implementation. So maybe that's what we can look at right now. Is it being followed in every school?
So are you suggesting like Superintendent Paolo?
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just going to point out that the item is currently on our November 2020 cycle as part of the 3-year review. So we can leave it there. We are also waiting to see if we are going to be getting any information from the ministry. They initially released November 2019 that information was coming. And one of the specific pieces that impacts the policy is some new definitions to incorporate in our policy. So I'm happy to leave it for November 2020. Maybe we'll have some information, and if we then need to tweak the policy, we can do that.
Thank you, Superintendent Paolo. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you. So I agree with starting it as soon as possible, and maybe understanding the procedures as well as the policies, because the policy is the overarching, and we might not get into some of the specifics that we need to understand or know what's going on. So I would recommend doing both. I mean, if we can start it, and then by the time November comes, we'll really have a good discussion.
Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Trustee Agnew.
Would there be an appetite perhaps then to look at a working group for this so that we could work on this in advance of the November piece and get a head start on this?
I would like that. I think that would be a great idea, and I think we can do a working group and with staff and whoever wants to participate in it.
Great.
And then when it comes to November meeting, we could maybe have a better understanding and whoever wants to participate in it. Trustee O'Hearns or Nota, we haven't heard from you, so I'm going to give you the floor for a second.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I would say meet in the middle. Schools are not physically in process now, so if it's up in November, if we could start this in September with a working group. So September working group, policy comes up in November. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you. Trustee Swan, you say you love that. Okay. Trustee Tomasi.
I like the happy medium, so I would support Trustee O'Hearns or Nota.
Whole thing. Thank you, Trustee Tomasi. Trustee Duarte.
Madam Chair, yes, I was just going to say that that's a great idea to have a working committee meeting. That's all.
Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Any other comments? Are we okay to do a working group, a working committee? Under the bylaws definition, we can do a working committee because it's not a standing committee, it's not a statutory committee, it's not an ad hoc committee, it is simply a working committee that would involve the trustees and staff. And Director Daly, would you be so kind as to allow that to happen? You don't have to turn it on, you're here.
I serve at the pleasure of the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. All right, is anybody else okay with having a working group? Trustee O'Hearns or Nota, that's a good? Is that a good and yes for the?
Madam Chair?
Good and yes.
I know, but Trustee O'Hearns ahead of you, Trustee Carabella. I'm just asking her. Sorry, Trustee Carabella, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Just looking through the bylaws, and I think we have it's called a staff working group, but we don't have as yet a current of a working group. So I think it's the staff.
Yes, it's a working staff committee, and that's why I asked Director Daly if he would be willing to allow us to do that. So if you heard what Director Daly said, he was at the will of the trustees, which he was in agreement to that.
Yes, that's right. You didn't mention this, that it was a working staff committee, so yeah.
I know, I said it was a working committee including staff. So I'm sorry that I didn't word it directly what the bylaws say. Sorry, Superintendent Cipriano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to kind of put this out to the group, that reminder that we do have a mental health advisory and steering committee led by our Chief of Mental Health, Glenda Brown, and both Glenda Brown, our Chief of Mental Health, and Patricia Codner, our Chief of Social Worker, are on this policy meeting call tonight, because when we saw the agenda, we weren't sure if there was going to have a mental health, social work, CYC component to it. Bullying prevention is part of mental health. We're hoping to create a more explicit pillar around bullying prevention under our mental health plan. And just a reminder that we also have Bullying Prevention Week that takes place every fall, and that's typically led by our social workers and our CYCs in our schools. So if you'd like some support on that working committee, I could also offer the support of our chiefs in that as well.
That's fantastic, Superintendent Cipriano, and I'm sure Director Daly thinks that working staff group, that would be an awesome idea.
Well, or it could be a subcommittee of the pre-existing group, but either way, we certainly want to turn our minds to it, for sure.
Excellent. So can we just, oh, look at this. So we've got an absolutely, so is everybody okay with this?
Let's do it.
So we've got Trustee Agnew, Trustee Duarte, Trustee O'Hearns or Nota, Trustee Swan loves it. That's great. Trustee O'Brien, Trustee You're good. Trustee Tomasi?
Abstain.
Okay, duly noted. Trustee DeRosa?
I'm okay.
Great. Trustee Murphy?
I'm okay, and I agree with the committee also.
Thank you. And who did I miss? Trustee Carabella?
That's fine. In favor.
Excellent. So we'll have, oh, sorry, Trustee Caratal. Trustee Swan already said absolutely. He says yes. Absolutely.
Sounds good with me as well.
Okay, excellent. So we'll have Director Daly put out to see who wants to be part of that working group with the staff.
I'll work with the chair on it, yes.
The chair of policy?
Yes.
Sorry. We'll move right along. Sorry, I'm putting Director Daly in a very awkward position right now, so I do apologize for that.
Sign me up.
Okay, so let's move on. Thank you for that, trustees. Policy I-26. This is student trustees on the Halton District School Board. This is a discussion item. We've got Trustee Murphy and Trustee Caratal. I'm not sure who wants to speak first, but you have the floor.
I can start speaking. I'll sell the sizzle, and then Trustee Caratal can sell the steak. So this policy is something that's near and dear to Trustee Caratal's heart. The very first conversation I had with him when he was elected a trustee, he mentioned about the opportunity to improve the democratic process for student trustees. And I was quite impressed by his thought and his process, and the extent to which he has worked through this, even though he had benefited from the restricted democratic process. So I was quite impressed with him, and I was quite honored when he asked me to help him bring this forward. So ideally, we can move this, have a discussion tonight, move it as an action item for the next policy meeting, and then if we can ideally get it changed while Trustee Caratal is still with us in his role would be optimal, and I'm sure all my fellow trustees are as enthusiastic as I am in moving this forward. Not that I'm trying to influence you. Trustee Caratal, please take it away.
Sorry, can I, before he takes it away, because I do not want to stop you in the middle, Trustee Caratal, it is 9:59, so we need to do procedurally take a vote to extend. So can I get a motion to extend policy past 10 o'clock?
Me, Marvin.
Trustee Duarte, seconded by?
Murphy.
Trustee Murphy. Anybody opposed? Okay, so we will continue on till 10:30. Trustee Caratal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and my apologies to Mr. Murphy because my speech does have a substantial amount of sizzle as well. Our board has always acknowledged that student voice is an integral part of our operation. Policy I-26, as it currently stands, makes reference to this long-held belief. It endorses, quote, the direct representation of the interests of students on the board, and it emphasizes that this representation should be brought about in a, quote, open and democratic manner. Now, as Mr. Murphy explained, as the situation currently stands, the student trustees of this board are currently elected by the Student Senate, which, for all its merits, is still an unelected body consisting of no more than 72 voting members. While technically democratic, this process cannot truly be described as open, and certainly not as involving all students. Now, we've brought improvements to that democratic element of the system just this year, with the requirement that the student trustee has to have a majority support of the Senate, but this improvement isn't a complete fulfillment of our mandate for openness and democracy. The students of the HCDSB, all of them, have opinions and needs, but the vast majority of them have been silenced of their democratic voice. Of an estimated 37,760 students on the board and 10,000 secondary students, there's only 72 of them that have the right to vote for their highest representative to the school board. That's 0.1% of all students. And even if we're generous, it's still less than 1% of all high school students. If a trustee, councillor, mayor, or a member of parliament was elected by an enfranchised population of only 1 in every 150 citizens or ratepayers, it'd be an outrage. The current system is analogous to trustees being elected only by parent councils. No matter how educated, involved, or dedicated that the parent counselors or the student senators may be, the principle of excluding so many stakeholders, in my opinion, can't be tolerated. Indeed, over the course of this country, the franchise, the right to vote, has been extended and expanded to include more and more people. Before Confederation, Catholics couldn't vote in this country, nor could landless or non-white men, any women, indigenous people, people of Asian heritage. But today, all citizens of majority age, they have the right to vote. It's a right for everyone and not just a right for a select few. So I call for the board to contribute to this democratic traditions of this country, and to especially the empowerment of students by extending the franchise for the student trustee election to all secondary and grade 8 students of the board. But I'd like to make it clear that in this call to the board, I'm not alone. My co-trustees can speak for themselves, but in conversations I've had with the incoming student trustees, numerous student senate and student council leaders, and most importantly, the general student population, they've all seemed to proclaim with one voice that they're in favor of this move. It'll benefit every student in the board. For instance, Sean DeMello, the student council co-president of Bishop Reading, told me, quote, "I was elected to be president by the 2,000 students of BR. That mandate gives me direct link and responsibility to the students of the school. From what I know, the position of student trustee is just as, if not more, impactful to students, but none of us have the ability to choose who they'll be. I selected my school's candidate for student trustee, but that was my right as one of 2 co-presidents. The final decision is made by 8 unelected senators from BR. I don't understand why, besides convenience, they deserve the right to speak on behalf of 2,000 and more. I support an amendment that'll bring a voice to everybody." In addition, former North Halton student trustee and current lead senator and student council president for Jean Vanier, Denzel Herrero, had this to say: "This proposal is a good idea. The Senate would confirm to this policy given the actionable cause and with the support of the new student trustees. Those incoming student trustees then continue to lend their support by encouraging current student trustees and the Board of Trustees to pursue a policy of direct elections for student trustees to the HCDSB, and note how, in particular, the restriction of the right to vote to only those who hold Senate membership, it's difficult to become a member of the Student Senate for many disadvantaged people. That then cuts them off in the democratic process." If you wanted some more, various other lead senators from Bishop Reading, Corpus Christi, Assumption, and Christ the King all made statements in favor of these amendments. I'm all for this sort of proposal. It's important for students to pick who they want to speak for them. It's an ambitious idea. I certainly am a fan of the democratization of the process. I'm happy to stand behind this motion. I think it's a good idea. It's important that students get to hear what those running have to say. And personally, I think it would get more students involved and knowing about Senate and student leadership. With enough education, it'd be a great idea. To conclude, finally, student trustees have a responsibility to represent all students, just as elected trustees have the responsibility for all ratepayers. They sit at the board table representing more than just the student senate. The student trustee may speak for all the students, but the students, as it currently stands, have no choice in who that student trustee will be. So in order to make a more democratic system to include all students and facilitate student engagement, I appeal to the board to take the necessary action to bring such a proposal into reality. I welcome any discussion trustees have on this topic.
Their jokes are stupid.
Thank you, Trustee Cara, for that very passionate and very informative information piece. Is there any? Sorry, somebody's got their microphone on. Trustee Stewart.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to thank Trustee Cara and for his sizzle, and Trustee Murphy for bringing forward this thing. When I saw this policy being redlined so drastically, something hit me and struck me, and I said, let me go and do my research as usual. So we have to be very, very careful if we want to make change to this process, which has been fine-tuned over the years, and we want to have the best, well-rounded, matured students to be elected as trustees and sit around this table. As I normally do my research, as I said, so I spoke to 2 senior principals who have been around for a long time, very well liked, very well respected, and very well experienced. And this is what I heard from them. I put them this question, exactly what, I asked them what's policy and where we are going. This is what I heard from them. Madam Chair, I'm going to take a few minutes, excuse me. School council is elected, and they explained to me the process. They said school council is elected by a group by all the students from grades 7 to 12. It is generally a popularity contest. Students from grade 9 do not even know what is happening when they come into high school, and they generally vote for a cool guy or a cool girl. Student Senate has an application and interview process. Prospective candidates generally are academic achievers involved in school, parish, and community. There's an application process. The principal or VP and sometimes the school chair will interview for these positions. For student trustees, there is an application process and some criteria need to be met by prospective students. Students are generally high performers and achievers and are all-rounders. Student Senate is involved in the selection process along with the principals, VPs, and a group of schools selects one student trustee. For example, Halton Hills, Milton has one trustee. Similarly with Oakville, each region. Student trustees from a group of schools will select one trustee to represent this region. This has proven to be very successful over the past years. Now the disadvantages, again, I'm listing what I spoke to the principals, and this is from them. Disadvantages of the suggested process. If all students select a student trustee, it will be a popularity contest again. No different than the schools council. The best, suitable, and qualified students will never have an opportunity to be a trustee. Number 2, each school would have its own student trustee in that case. Right now, 2 schools in Milton and Georgetown have one student trustee, which has been, and the student trustee has been moving between schools. You will never be able to have a student trustee from a group of schools because the school with the largest number of students will always have the trustee from that school. In areas where there's not much diversity, in Oakville, Burlington, for example, there will be no equity in representing the minority qualified candidates. Rather, the popular candidate would be selected. This is the principles about, both the principals told me, this is an absolutely bad idea according to the information I collected. Rather, they have suggestions on improving the process. We need to improve the process of selecting the student trustees. We need to add criteria for the student trustee nomination and selection. We cannot compare student trustee election to the adult trustee election process because I don't think we got elected because of our popularity, at least not me, I'm the least popular person, but we got elected because of our involvement in the community. So I would say that we must be very careful before make a change to this fair and equitable process that has been working well. It is like us making rules for ourselves. So, dear trustees, I'm not trying to put a damper on enthusiasm. It's great that we have this enthusiasm, but we really must think through the process. We need to get more input from principals and people who are in the field. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Duert. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, but changes of this magnitude will require stakeholder feedback anyways. So, because it's changing a whole process, and I'm not sure if it looks like if it's stakeholder feedback would be with the students or with the parents or what it might be. So there might be somebody who can answer that is more qualified than I. Trustee, our Superintendent Paolo, can you maybe?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. It would be a feedback process where we could likely include both parents and students.
Madam Chair, follow-up question.
Thank you. Wait, Trustee Duert, I would love to give you a follow-up question,
okay,
except for there's like 5 other people in line to speak. So if can you come back in the line? Or can you limit it to an actual question?
Just to answer that to Superintendent Balog is, yes, in the feedback process, can we include the principal and administrators of the high school too? That's it.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. When we send policies out for stakeholder feedback, it includes staff, so they would be captured there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We've got Trustee, I just lost my train here. Trustee DeRosa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, my congratulations to Trustee Cara for a very passionate and well-articulated presentation. Whether you support his proposal or not, one cannot deny that he's done an excellent job at putting it forward. You know, the democratic process, and this this is a democratic process in many respects. We were elected by trustees were elected through an election process, and student trustees certainly are put forward to represent, or at least to try to represent their community, which is a community of students. There's a lot of red lines on this thing, and I'm delighted that something like this would have to go back for feedback, because it requires some thought. I didn't realize that senators or student senators were appointed. I thought they were elected, and I admit to my own ignorance about the system, but I am learning every day. So it goes against the grain of democracy. So I can understand the proposal that Trustee Cara is putting forward. I also understand some of the concerns that Trustee Duarte has put forward as well. How do you guarantee through an election process that the best qualified people come to the table? Don't know. I'm delighted that this is being considered. I'm not prepared necessarily to support it right away until I get an opportunity to contemplate it a little longer, and certainly to see the feedback from the parents and the students.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you, Trustee DeRosa. Just a reminder, this is a discussion item. It is not here to be voted on tonight. It would come
I didn't
back
assume it was.
to the next meeting. Yeah.
I didn't assume it was.
No, I'm just reminding. So, Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Cara. Trustee Cara, thank you for a very sizzling presentation. Question about the changes. One of the changes is you struck out a letter of endorsement from the parish priest, and you put in its place a letter of endorsement from any of the following: the parish priest or the school system chaplain. In your feedback from the student body that you've solicited information, does the student body see the parish priest and the school system chaplain being on a par, or being of the same level?
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. I can answer that question by framing the board with a scenario. There was a prospective nominee for student trustee from my school, Bishop Redding, and due to circumstances in their personal life and a new parish priest that was just brought in to Holy Rosary Parish, they were unable to attain a letter from their parish priest despite being a devout Catholic with regular mass attendance. This provision is in my proposed amendments merely to make it easier for Catholic students to prove their Catholicity before the board, essentially just to make it easier to prove that you are somebody who has active parish membership and regular mass attendance. And so that problems like that would not arise in the future for perfectly competent Catholic nominees.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Trustee Cara and Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Tomasi, I'm assuming that was just a comment. So Trustee Cara.
No, I was.
Trustee
Do I have the
Tomasi.
floor? Are you recognizing me, Madam Chair?
I was just looking that it was a comment. Was that a hand up? It doesn't say hand up.
That's correct. So I will stay behind, and you can put me on queue. I've already put the hand.
Great, thank you. Trustee Cara, you have the floor.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. I would imagine, I don't know how long student trustees have been at our board or boards across the GTA or wherever in Ontario. So there must be a history of how it's evolved from the beginnings to how it is now. And that could also, be reflective of, the process. Maybe we're going back to how it was. I don't know. And maybe it's the way it is now because that process didn't work well. So I think that is a piece that we should be clear on the history of student trustees and their election process.
Is there a question there, Trustee Carabella? Are you asking for historic information? I don't know if there's anybody here.
That would be a question. If anyone's there, or that could be brought back to us as a little information.
I would maybe suggest in light of time, it's 10:16, and there's other people in the queue that maybe we can ask that it will come back as an action item, that it can be, if that information can be shared with us on prior to that meeting, that'd be great. Is that okay, Trustee Carabella?
Thank you. Yes.
Trustee Caratau, did you have your hand up to answer that question, or are you in the queue to?
I'm perfectly all right with waiting to hear other trustees' questions before I answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Duart. And Trustee Duart, I'm going to limit you to the 5-minute rule, okay?
Sorry, I'm going to pull my hand back. It was for the earlier question.
Okay, perfect. Trustee Tomasi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I think the presentation was extremely well thought out. And to reply to Trustee Duart's comment, the fact of the matter is that democracies, unfortunately, are populist in nature, which means the person with the most votes wins. I think that this is so well thought out that perhaps Trustee Caratau, should be bringing this to the federal government. I love it. I would support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Tomasi. Sorry, I'm sorry. Did you just say that you would lobby the federal government to make these changes?
Correct.
Wow, that's ambitious of you, Trustee Tomasi. That's amazing. How about we work on getting it done here at our board first?
Exactly. Proportional representation is something that's forthcoming, just so you know.
That's great. Thank you for the lesson. Trustee Swan.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I just want to highlight for the Board of Trustees that the fact that this kind of process is actually not new. We see this in multiple boards, actually in our coterminous board, or coterminous board, Halton Public District School, Halton, or HDSB rather. They also pursue the same kind of process, albeit they are the public board, but they do have direct voting. We also see this in Toronto Catholic District School Board as well, and York Region District School Board with similar processes. And I think that kind of speaks to the fact that I guess prospective student trustee candidates do really need to have a solid platform, kind of a solid kind of, how should I say this, pathway in which they want to be able to serve their role. And I think that I think having students directly vote for the student trustees just emphasizes the importance of actually knowing what your platform is. What do the prospective student trustees want to accomplish in their role? And by making that direct, I think it provides a greater outreach in convincing those students who are going to be voting for them in the first place. Sorry, I didn't have a question onto that.
Oh, no, sorry. I'm just not quick enough with the mouse. Sorry about that. Thank you, Trustee Swan. Trustee Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sit here a little heavy-hearted because this is the second instance in a short period of time that I completely agree with Trustee Tomasi. So my world is, as we know it, is somewhat spinning out of control. I think, with all due respect to those, who commented about the electoral process and democracy, so how can the people who elected us be so brilliant and infallible to pick the right candidates, yet we can't afford that same grace to our students? So why is it that democracy works for us because they were so smart to pick us, but we can't give that opportunity to our student body? when I've walked through our high schools, I've been nothing but impressed with the ability of our students. I would be more than comfortable to support their decision making and their thought process. The candidates, the trustees that we have experienced and dealt with that are phenomenal. They're nothing short of outstanding in all manners of how their abilities and how they handle themselves. And I'm sure that they would be able to impress upon their electorate those qualities and come forward. I don't see it. I don't see the proverbial popular kids, the jocks, running for this position. I don't see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. Trustee Tomasi.
I don't know how that got there. That was from previous. Thank you.
Trustee Duarte.
So, Madam Chair, I'm going to keep it real short again. I think I've come across as not agreeing to this and opposing this. I'm not. I'm really proud of our students and I'm really proud of the achievements. My only thing is we need to, when I see this policy in front of me, all red line, it kind of lit up LED lights in my head, thinking something is seriously wrong in this process. That's why I spent my time doing my research. All I'm saying is we need to think through the policy line by line, bullet by bullet, do our research, go back and get information, come back and then make a good decision. I'm all for supporting our students, don't get me wrong. And the presentation was great, but it should be backed up by data or by information. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Duarte. Seeing there's no more comments, thank you very much, Trustee Cara, and thank you, Trustee Murphy, for bringing this forward on behalf of Trustee Cara. We'll move on to the next item, which is information items. So item number 6, information items. These are all the items at the next upcoming policy meeting in June. Item 7, miscellaneous items. There are no miscellaneous items. And number 8, we need to return back in camera to approve minutes. Can I get a motion to return back into camera?
Me, I can.
Trustee Duarte, seconded by?
I'll second it.
Trustee O'Hearn Nota. So we'll just need a minute to shut down. Do we have to come back in? Or can we just shut off online? Okay, we just need a minute until we're out of camera, and we'll move into camera.
So do we log out and come back in?
No, you don't have to. We can.
Shut off the video. Okay.
We can shut off the feed. I'll let you know when we're there.
Thank you.